Hi. Well, I was watching, I was going to finish the Tucker Carlson one that I had started this morning uh, with this man from England. Again, about his name's Frank Wright, about white repl- white replacement. I'm like, yeah, Tucker, you're always talking about white replacement. Well, I'm living it. Uh, so then I saw this what's his name? Julian Dorey with, where's my thing? Um, with this woman, Elizabeth Lane. Now she's getting platformed everywhere. I mean, I'm not sure what's going on. I had never heard of her. I've been on the committee of the family court reform people to get the journalists to cover of the how family courts and child protection services and adoption services and all the government agencies are enabling and empowering the PDFs. I mean, Pizzagate, none of this is any surprise. Even with QAnon, when that first came out, I was like, who's behind this? Because I've been exposing all of that shit that goes on with QAnon. I mean, it's mine are through reports from the Bar Association. You know, let's just, how shall I explain it? There's parallels there. It's not exactly the same thing, but it's all about this child, the trafficking of children, and how everybody is involved. In fact, I had tried to contact, it's this Chan group or something. I don't know. And I was just like, I don't know what, when you can't find out who is the person behind this website or group, I'm very wary because I'm like, okay, what are you hiding? What's your agenda? My lord, with the people who actually put their name out there and come out and real people, you already got to scratch your head. Okay, what's this person's agenda? Everybody wants to start another nonprofit, give speeches. Oh God, I on Facebook I just saw Leslie Morgan Steiner again. I'm like, my God, instead of giving this person a platform, she needs some psychiatric help. Her first book's Crazy Love. I mean, she's typical corporate. Oh, comes from a very dysfunctional family, real social climbing mom. Um, just a typical dysfunctional social climber. But like the night before she's getting married, her husband, her fiance at this point, takes a gun and holds it to her head. I mean, he's telling her, he's giving her a clear message of what this marriage is going to be like. I'm sorry, some guy who does that to me, like, I'm not walking down the aisle the next day. And any woman who does, there's some serious problems there. So, everybody wants to shut me up because I'm not playing the victim card. I want you to get your shit together. It started, I mean, at the very beginning in Spain, I was like, take your goddamn shoulder to cry on and stick it up your ass. Ooh, I thought I was like, okay, this is just in Spain. I got to document it, make it out alive, and I'm going to get to the United States and get some help for my consulate and all my family and friends in high places. We're going to hear about the ruling elite here that they're going to talk about. We'll get into that. They've all canceled me. Que sera, my mother and my mother-in-law. Um, and the thing is, yeah, my husband, no, never any of this shit. Like Leslie Morgan Standing, I'm like, you're crazy. No, he lost it. He, he destroyed his career. He was a currency trader. Well, Julian Dorey should know. He knows people on Wall Street. You know, these are not, this is high risk, high yield. Uh, how shall I explain it? These are not people who look for a calm, tranquil life. I mean, I worked in the financial markets and I was there for the 87 collapse. I always tell people, I'm like, you guys, problem is gambling when it's somebody else's money is lots of fun. It's lots of fun. And they got it stacked up, so even if they lose, you lose your shirt, they still win. It's a highly dysfunctional world. And I saw the 2008 collapse coming before, a year before it came. I mean, with the IMF, I was 7 years there. I mean, I got the goods on everybody, but I can't find a freaking lawyer or politician who wants to do anything about it. They don't want any unpleasantness. Anyway, we're going to get into this because this just goes all over the map. First, Elizabeth Lane. I was like, okay, who is this woman? What's this? I'm like some Russian agent or something that's been sent in here? Because all of a sudden, she's all over the place with these podcasters. Now, I've been following the Charlie Kirk assassination since the beginning, and it was Arnold Schwarzenegger who, was on some panel discussion. He said the problem is the press that is radicalizing everybody. And I was, well, you're partially right. It's also the politicians who don't know how to answer their mail or answer their phones. And all they're doing is chasing tail up on Capitol Hill and having parties. I keep on telling everybody in Washington, the day that taxpayers find out how much money you all are spending to party. I mean, food and drink flow freely in this town like you wouldn't believe. And there are children starving in this world, and there are children being trafficked and even eaten now by these assholes. I mean, that really is, that I know that. That's been a surprise for me with the Epstein shit. The Pizzagate, I thought, it was like, in a basement, in a pizza shop, they're trafficking kids. I was like, you guys, maybe they have a computer down there that they're using for it, but I don't know. Apparently there were some kids down there. And of course, when the story came out, oh, no, it was the guy. He went and he shot the server, the computer server. I was like, oh, ding, ding. Guess what happened there? Told you it was just a computer. They're using it. But I didn't know about the cannibalism shit or the sacrificing of children. I mean, I thought it was just the graping. I mean, nobody can say they don't know, because I've been posting it out there for 20 years, and I know a lot of people. And if anybody doesn't know, it's because they've all been involved, whether it be the press, the politicians, the economists, the socialites, the doctors, the lawyers, everybody. Okay, so let's break this down. Let better not forget my. Oh, and I don't know if mono or stereo is a better. I know my voice is not great, but I do what I can. I have no money. Everybody wants to see me in a tent on the street. So I'm just happy to have my pathetic little laptop and be able to stay online. So sorry about the lack of technical professionalism, but I do what I can. So let's listen.
Day.
And by the way,
I think Elizabeth, I just want to respond to some of this because there's a lot you just put out there. I think today in this discussion so far, however far we,
what did she put out there?
I think today.
Oh, okay, he's just starting this.
Up to me, I mean, I can say it like right now, but then other people are involved, so their lives will be in danger.
Oh,
you understand
so you're
what I'm
worried
saying?
about the other end of it. I gotcha.
Yeah, not me. Like, I don't care about, like, I did nothing wrong.
Right, and you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that works.
So for him,
right,
it will be not a good case.
Yeah, that would be a long journey home.
Right,
yeah,
right.
I gotcha. People don't know what we're talking about.
That's okay, though.
Yeah.
But Elizabeth Lane, it's great to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, you have a mutual friend, John Kiriakou. So John's guy, Simon, had hit me up. I was like,
yeah, so John Kiriakou, I'm like, wait a second, John Kiriakou, who's FBI? How does she know him?
like, yeah, I've been seeing this girl's going to the Charlie Kirk shooter's trial, like actually like in the courthouse and stuff. Yes. So I'm like, I would love to talk with you about that today, but you cover a whole lot of stuff. I'm sure we'll get into it with all that, but you're from the country, Georgia, like so not Atlanta, Georgia.
I always say I'm from the U.S., but I was born in Georgia.
Yeah. So you don't fuck with Georgia anymore.
I love the country. It's just, it's not my country anymore, So, and I would like to see this happen more in the US when people have double citizenships and they have double loyalties and so on, like pick one country and be loyal to them.
Well, you've lived that. So, I mean, you have credibility to say that.
But here I'm going to disagree with everybody because I'm an American naturalized French. I left my country, disgusted at the end of the 80s. I came back at the end of in 2009, reclaiming my rights. But I mean, even when I was living abroad, I'm American and always be American. I'm a naturalized French citizen. Actually, I have French blood going back to colonization, but from my mother's side. But I'm an American citizen and I always will be. And I mean, that is my first loyalty is that. But I also have the loyalty. I mean, I take my French nationality seriously, and I want the courts cleaned up in France and the politicians get their shit together in France. And oh Lord, with the Macrons, when we got Dominique Strauss-Kahn before that involved when I was at the IMF. So I want that shit cleaned up. But also in Spain. That's where my case is, but also my children have Spanish nationality. So this whole thing of, somebody saying that they're American and that they've renounced their original nationality. I'm like, well, in most cases not, because there are a lot of foreigners here, even born here, who are involved in subverting the Constitution, rule of law, and democracy in the country. And this is precisely a problem. What about all of these immigrant families who are involved in all sorts of illegal and amoral activity? What happens? I mean, Oh, there's this little snot-nosed brat who works with me. I mean, she gives me attitude like you can't believe. And, I was born here. Nobody can touch me. I'm like, little girl, you want to, I can go after you on the Enemy Alien Act. So don't give me that shit, because you can either go to prison here or you can go back home. Pick your poison, you little snot-nosed brat. You want to, I mean, if everybody in Washington was helping me and going to the congressional members and saying, get your shit together, and knocking on doors and assisting me instead of telling me to shut up and they want to see me on a tent on the streets, well, then we wouldn't be here. I mean, everybody in Washington is disgusting. All they care about is cashing in, cashing in, cashing in. The journalists amongst the first. Well, they're not the first because they're here because of the politicians. Yeah, but you get my drift.
For sure. Mm-hmm. Did you feel? Well, let's start here. You're born in Georgia.
Yes.
I'm from there, but that sounds like a bit of a cop out. But whatever.
Yeah. No, I mean, you can say I'm from Georgia. I'm proud of Georgians.
Right.
Like, it's a great country. It's an ancient country, second Christian country in the world, right? So people don't know that. They are predominantly Christian. They are very similar to Russian in a way, but they are not Slavs. So, it's a great country. It is truly a great country. They share a lot with Americans. They, love to freedom and constitution and all of that. They share that with the American people, but it just never was my culture. So I was born there. I moved to the U.S. I found my people, my country, home. So
how old were you when you came to the U.S.?
I think the first time I visited U.S., I think I was 17.
Okay, so you spent your whole childhood in Georgia.
Yeah. I spent my childhood, high school in Georgia and so on. So I know a lot about the country.
Why did you come to the U.S. to visit the first time?
First time it was through, it's so funny. First time I went through UN conference. I think it was like about, they got like these bright kids in school to do this UN conference. So that was my first visit to the United States. And as I recall, it might have been.
So I'm not going to hold it against her, but I'm like, oh God. Okay. Yeah, I know that pipeline. Astrid and Ingrid Betancourt of Colombia are in that pipeline. In fact, their father was part of the architect of that during the Kennedy administration. Okay, so let's go back. I won't hold it against her because I've listened to what we're going to listen to farther down the line. But just that everybody knows that this is the pipeline for some of the honeypots that are coming in here.
Earlier than that. But yeah, so UN conference, because I was always interested in politics. I did a radio show back home. So
as a teenager?
Yeah.
What was the radio show about? Politics?
No, radio show was like cheesy, weird stuff, like just talking about relationships and, things like that. But my interest was always politics, even when I was acting. I acted like all throughout my childhood.
Oh, you were acting as a child?
Yes.
So did you have like Hollywood dreams or?
Yes, I did, actually. It's funny, like everyone asks me, like, did you move because of Hollywood? And I kind of give into it and say, sure, yes, I did. But reality is no, I actually moved for a completely different reason, which sounds stupid and funny. But when you think about it, it's not really stupid and funny. So in high school, I got an assignment. Okay. So I was supposed to pick a president, any president or a leader of the country that I thought did something exceptional, and then write about his character, like what he left as legacy and so on. And I was like, okay, I don't know who to pick, right? So I'm going through like, who would I like? I thought about maybe Alexander the Great. I mean, he's still a leader, great. I stopped at Kennedy.
Yeah, I knew where that was going.
Right. And I was like going through his life, listening to every speech that I could find.
Pull that mic in just a little bit, Elizabeth. You're good.
So going through like everything that I could find about this guy. I mean, ask me anything about Kennedy's. I can tell you everything. Like their villa, Hickory Hill, that they used to like gather and play football. And I know everything, right? I fell in love with the ideologies this man had. And I was like.
Does she know about Ethel and Jackie and Rose? Oh gosh. Coming home, I always go through DuPont Circle. And lots of times there's canvassers there. And this one girl stops me. She gives me like the elbow bump, and I'm like, oh gosh, this is not starting out good. I mean, I know she's a canvasser, and I even turn off my radio. Um, People are look at me and say, "Oh my God, a radio!" I'm like, "Yeah, I've had one the whole time." Um, Although I don't, I have it on without my earphones, just because it's. I don't know. I've got ringing in my ears, and it's helping not that. So anyway, um, what was what was now oh yeah, so the girl, the canvasser, so she's stopping me, and it's the Special Olympics, and I'm like, yeah, the Special Olympics, that was one of JFK and RFK's sister who started that, and they started that because Rose, JFK and RFK's mother, Joe Sr.'s wife, um they had a daughter who was named Rose. I'm not sure what in line she came, but she was amongst the older kids. And well, there was some problem with the doctor, or yeah, I think it was the doctor coming to deliver the baby, so they like prevented the baby from being born, and it was damaged. And it was Rose, and she came out with mental problems, and was kind of an embarrassment for the Kennedy family. And so Joe Kennedy, behind Rose's back, went and had the girl lobotomized. And it just completely, you know, destroyed the poor child. And she became a vegetable, basically, and was put away into a home. So I don't know if she knows about that story. Oh, and then Ethel Kennedy, her breakdown. But so I told the young girl, I said, that's what the Special Olympics did. That the Special Olympics, just another nonprofit. Where's all that money go? And for a bunch of people, their executive committee, we saw with the whole TPE USA, that gave a good case study on what's going on, but it's going on everywhere. And I'm like, they started that, so I forget which Kennedy's sister it was, so she could, have a bunch of ladies in waiting, brown nosing her, and they can have some money to do their little parties and ease their conscience of handicapped children and how Rose was treated. Yeah. So I don't know if she knows all about that.
Whatever these guys about, I want to be part of. And that was when I decided I want to be part of the United States and everything it is about. Unfortunately, we are no longer about those things, but I believe we can go back to it.
I think some people in power are no longer about those things.
Very true
a lot
statement.
of people here are about those things. What types of, on a broad 30,000 foot kind of view though, what types of ideologies about Kennedy specifically stood out to you?
I think first and foremost, he was for people. He believed that you can give power to people and they can determine what the course of the country should be. And which is actually opposite of what elites believe, right? Like they believe that, no, you got to be controlled. We have to, like, what Larry Fink said was force the behavior. Remember that? So I don't believe that. I also don't believe in full democracy. It didn't work out, obviously, for Greeks, right? I believe that it can be somewhat of a hybrid, or it can just be what America was based on. When founding fathers got together and figured out, okay, so maybe the best model is the model that we're creating here for people to, kind of have a say in what they want to be and how they want to be by giving them freedom of speech.
Okay, does she know about John Dickinson, founding father John Dickinson? And his participation with Thomas Jefferson, because John Dickinson, in terms of rhetoric, he was the author of what was it? Something from a farmer, message from a farmer or something. It was a news, well, not really a news. I don't know, I guess a newsletter that he published at the time. He was the most widely known and widely followed of the founding fathers, and he produced most of the rhetoric. He was a UK-born barrister, and I've been going back into all of that with my activism work. He's in my family tree, and this gets into the Puritan movement and the whole kit and caboodle about if she loves this country so much, what is it? Because really what this country and what made this country great are its Puritan roots. And I'm not talking about the religious. I'm talking about, the Puritan work ethic and honorable honesty, help thy neighbor. I mean, at its roots, it was about implementation of the Bible. And you had the Catholics, but then you had the Anglican Church, which basically was created because Henry VIII wanted a divorce.
By giving them freedom of religion, all of that.
Right.
But at the same time, America is a kind of a bureaucracy, right? So bureaucracy is not full freedom. It
Yes.
cannot possibly be. So I think that's a great hybrid. It's just we need to stick with it without becoming corporate fascism, which we have became.
Meaning, if I'm understanding this correctly,
Yeah.
where it remains or should remain purely like a mix of democratic and republic principles.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I got you.
Well,
So
what do you think?
I would agree with that, the way I just put it. I want to make sure I unpack what
absolutely.
you said later on some of that, because there was a lot there. But the idea that like you have a mix of the like pure democracy is where technically every single thing ever is voted on. You can't take a shit without a decision being made. That obviously wouldn't be possible to have. But when you have people making a decision on your behalf, and I'm getting a little beyond democracy and republic pure definitions here, but like when you have people that you select democratically to make some decisions on your behalf that are in line with what you elect, which is how it's mostly supposed to work and hasn't worked out very recently. But, that in that system to me is a pure system. To your point, I think we have had a bastardization of it. And I think the last thing you said is actually a really important part, which is that you have, this kind of corporate matrix where one feeds the other. I've brought this up. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. But
I call it corporate fascism. And I hear, and tell me what you think about this too, because I hear US is becoming communist. Like, no, it's not. It's becoming fascist. It's absolutely becoming fascist. And there's a huge distinction between these two. Yeah. And from someone who comes from a commie country, which was Georgia, right? We were communists, much like Russians. Like, I can recognize the signs that it's not communism. It is fascism that we are becoming, which is more dangerous, in my opinion.
What are those signs?
I've been saying that for 10 years.
Like, for example, what's the difference between communism and fascism? We don't have to go like far in deep to it, but do you own your house when you buy it in the US?
But the funny thing is that the one who pushed the fascism, the motor of it came from the left, the woke left, which created a backlash from the right. That's kind of, I would say, what surprised me. I was like, it's not the white supremacists who created the problem. It's these crazy woke illiberals who pissed everybody off and sent the pendulum swinging in the other direction. Some of it with reason, but as always, the left continued to pull, so it's made the far right even more and more extreme, because it's like, no, I mean, we just heard that with Tucker Carlson on the last one that I did. I'm going to finish up his later on.
Kind of do, right? It's your property, but at the same time,
mortgage,
but you're dependent to even have that house. You're kind of dependent on all these payments, and you're paying to who? Who are you paying to? The government necessarily? No, you're paying to a bank, right? Yes. So you have corporate elites. They're eating you up, which is like pretty much what fascism is, like corporate elites getting together, deciding what's good for what? The state, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have that in communism. You can have...
It's a bunch of oligarchs in bed with Wall Street. Well, you got the commodities market in Chicago, but hedge fund guys the oligarchs and Wall Street. And it's all held together with strings and bows in Washington. Oh, and don't forget about Hollywood. We need the propaganda from all the movies.
Have whatever you want for free, but it doesn't belong to you.
The state, in this case, is playing the corporates.
Yes.
Yeah, China's a good example.
Exactly,
sure.
exactly.
Yes.
So in communism, like my grandma, and I grew up more with my grandma than my parents. Like that's another story. She lived.
A lot of other stories
where were her
with
parents?
Elizabeth. She says
Oh,
that.
it's a
like,
lot.
that's a whole another one.
So the thing is, when I was even like, as I remember myself, like 5-year-old, right? I wouldn't go to bed without a story. I was like, staying at my grandma's, tell me a story. And she was like up here, like with the stories, but she would tell me these like stories from her life, right? So, which was like fascinating. And she lived communism. So she knew what it was like. She lived during Khrushchev. She remembered Stalin as a kid. Like she remembered all of that stuff. So I was like, tell me a story. And I gathered so many stories. So
Well, I remember my ex-husband's grandmother, the maternal one. And she would tell stories about fascism under Franco. I was like, she was like, oh, yeah, you had to go to the window and wait. Yeah, hi. What a lady. A true lady. She was semi-illiterate, but she was one of the few ladies I met in Spain.
know like what life looked like in communism and in so.
I mean, believe me, one of my big beefs is the ruling elite in Spain. Huh. Rodrigo Rato, he was at the IMF. He's one of them in there. And his niece got her training at Cuatro Casas, who are the ones who handled my divorce. Now, when we finally got the cases submitted, the grievances submitted to the International Criminal Courts, I contacted them and I say, look, y'all, this is over at the International Criminal Courts. We're going all the way. I'm going all the way with you. I am challenging the second jurisprudence on violence against women as human rights violations. That's González Carreño versus Spain, CEDAW, 2014. I haven't been able to find any of the bitches and all the nonprofits to submit. But now we've got this woman. She's a lawyer. Her mom became victim of family courts. And so that's submitted there. So I was like, okay, look, I just want to get this global expats and the whole, social media platform up. This is about 100 million that is costing these platforms. we'll give me that and we'll call it quits, and I won't come after you, because it's a hell of a lot more than 100 million that I've lost in the past 18 years from all the crap that you all pulled with me and during my divorce. No, so they ignored me. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to take. Oh, and they're not only are the biggest law firms in Spain, but also in Portugal. I mean, they're global. I mean, all of these global corporate law firms need to answer. This is the problem. They're all in bed together. And they're supported by the military.
Soviet Union, even though I was never part of it, because when I was born, it kind of got dismantled, right? In 1991 with Gorbachev and all that, that we can talk about as well. Freaking idiot, Gorbachev. So, and
the man who took down the wall.
He was a complete moron.
Took down the wall.
So, and caused what? Caused us to end up exactly where we are today. We can talk about that.
I think that was more Yeltsin, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, yes and no. Yes and no. Gorbachev bought into Western promises. It was Gorbachev who was promised that NATO would not, advance an inch. So who promised exactly? Like the same people that were pretty much controlling the CIA, the same elites. What was Baker and Bush? Bush was not a CIA puppet, not a puppet, but the director. Yeah, he was the CIA. His entire family crafted the same.
Baker, Secretary Treasury Baker, I think she's referring to. Yeah, that's a problem.
Agency. You know this really well.
Prescott.
So exactly. And the CIA agent tells you that NATO would not advance and you believe him and you make your 20-year plans in the future according to what he says to you. Are you stupid? Like, you know what I mean?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Like,
who knows if he actually believed all of it, though? Because unfortunately, with the politicians, and this is just how it is, for better or worse, usually worse, it's one thing what they tell us, and it's another thing what they say behind the scenes.
But he acted as if he did, right?
Sure.
So he put down the wall. He allowed the unification. And then he continued the course as if he believed. I don't know if he actually believed or not, but look at his actions. That's how, I don't care what you say to me if you're doing the opposite, right? So your actions speak louder than your words. And seems to me that Gorbachev actually believed in it. And Yeltsin became a puppet, which we can talk about too. Yeltsin was such a big puppet of the West that I don't think I've ever seen Russian president more dependent on the elites. And
he was dependent on something. That man for 8 years was never sober.
Never.
I can tell you that.
Have you seen that clip when he almost like fell?
Yes.
He's like standing and like randomly just like almost falls. Yeah.
You know me. I like to dress comfortably and not think about too much at all, which makes wearing dress clothes a big to-do. Is one of those guys, and I've heard from people that have met him over the years who didn't like him at all, hated him.
Yeah.
But then they met him and they're like, fuck, you can't not like
you're
this
such a nice guy.
What the fuck? I don't believe any of that stuff they say about you.
True.
Like they go, even if they're like, I'm talking to some dudes I've talked to who are like the hardest core Republicans who hated him back then or whatever. And then they'd meet him and they're like, God damn it, he's a good time. You know, something about that guy. I don't know.
He's very good. Like he's very good. I think that's part of the reason why Bush kind of like put him under his wing, right? This is where people don't connect the dots. Like you understand he was a governor of Arkansas, right? The CIA's drug operation.
Right, where Mina was.
Right, exactly. Barry Seal and all of that. And all of a sudden, I think Clinton, number one, was too charming. And second, he was just a good little boy for the CIA. And then he becomes the president.
Right.
And even though he's Democrat, by the way, which you would think that a Republican like Bush would not like someone like Bill Clinton, right? Yet he said what? Like he's like my son.
Yeah, I think the one who's really evil is Hillary. There's an article. I haven't read it, but somebody told me, he said, oh yeah, if you want a list of, it's, the article's called, It Doesn't Pay to Be Friends with the Clintons, and it's pretty much a list of everybody that they've had taken out. Begins, I do believe it begins with Bill Clinton's chief of staff in his first administration.
Or something like that. Really? I wonder how that went down. Like, what did he do?
They all go to the same steakhouses on K Street.
Exactly.
It's a giant, like George Carlin said it best, and it gets truer every day. It's a giant club, and you're not
part of it.
You know, and you see people go in there. You know, whether it be a congressman or a senator, or, you know, even with Trump, like as president, who may come in and they may seem like more of an outsider or whatever, and then you see the kind of system swallow them up. But we got into this because we were talking about communism and fascism. I don't want to get off that because it's an interesting point. You're absolutely correct, by the way, in the clear distinctions in how they carry things out.
Exactly.
I overgeneralize in the past, and purposely so. I'm okay with it because what they do both have in common is that they're both totalitarian. They both seize control. So I've always looked at it like communists hate fascists. That's a historical thing. But they hate each other because they see each other in themselves. Even if it's like you do it with this or you do it with that.
It's also competition, right? Like they both want to be on top. And it's like, well, they are in competition and they're exactly alike in terms of what they see the future should look like, right? So it's scary. Yeah. But I always thought, honestly, that fascism was more scary than communism because communism, here's the problem with communism. It will destroy itself. You know, it will get to the point where it will eradicate itself. And that's what happened with Soviet Union. It was not American propaganda. It imploded from the inside because communism does not work. It doesn't work unless it's
Question on that. So you don't think, because that would be the propaganda I'd be okay with if you're trying to like stop communism or something without, you know, overthrowing governments and killing millions of people. You don't think there was some sort of like messaging that the United States was able to get in there to push people? Of course. I mean,
messaging, well, yes and no. So messaging was always there. But I mean, you know, communism did not break down because of American messaging or because of CIA's hard work or something. It broke down because Russian people were never naturally designed to be a communist. And neither were Georgians. Like I said, well, how did I start with when I explained what Georgia was? They are freedom lovers. If you knew Georgian past, I mean, these guys are like this big, okay? Like in Caucasian Mountains, by the way, word Caucasian comes from my people. Like Caucasian Mountains. What is that? Where is that? In Georgia. So Caucasian comes from the word itself from Georgia. So these people managed to survive like through centuries and centuries of wars and invasions. And like people are shocked. How are you a nation still? How? Well, you're telling these people that now they're going to bow down to communism? Like wrong crowd, bro.
Right.
You know? So that's what imploded communism. But by itself, it's a faulty ideology, right? It's not going to last. Yeah. Now, fascism is a little bit of a different case.
Yeah, why?
Like, it allows elites to flourish. And it's not about one dictator like Stalin or, you know, Xi or whatever. Like it allows multiple devils and multiple heads on one dragon, right? And it's really hard to fight. I mean, look at what's going on here. You have a corporate, like in America, we have a corporate fascism. Tell me exactly who rules BlackRock or Vanguard. Can you tell me all the names? Can you tell me the shadowy people behind? No, you can't. You can tell me that, you know, yeah, well, CIA director knows nothing. What does CIA director know? Well, take Kennedy's case. Kennedy changed the CIA director. He kicked out Alan Dulles. They killed him anyway.
Right. Alan did it from his Georgian.
Exactly. Because he had loyal goons at the CIA that even director didn't know about.
That's right.
So
director is a political appointee.
Thank you. And the president here is a 4-year employee. There you go. So that's why it's more dangerous. And that's why dear Prescott Bush, almost overthrew Roosevelt in something called the plot. I'm sure you've heard of it, right? When they tried to overthrow Roosevelt for what? Fascism dictatorship in America.
That's right.
Because he knew fascism can last.
You're talking about the Smedley
Butler, yes. I'm so glad. I'm here with intellectuals, guys. I don't get this often.
Well,
okay, it's
I appreciate you calling me an intellectual. That's one from New Jersey. Just put that on the board right there. We got that on tape, right, Brendan? Oh, God damn it. That's the one time you're supposed to be rolling. We got Brendan in the studio today doing a little behind the scenes. But yeah, so one of the things I've always talked about, it's just interesting to hear you have it where it's like communism and fascism. Fascism's where the corporates control, communism's where the government controls.
Right.
But the same question of like the balance exists here in America. And I've always brought this up because it's a really tough answer where it's like the buck is always going to stop more somewhere. It's just the nature of like physics. When you roll a ball in a room, the room's never perfectly flat. So one side is going to lean more towards. And it's like, I think communism and fascism are amazing examples as to why you don't want the buck stopping with the government, but you also don't want the buck stopping with the quote unquote free market because then it becomes very not free.
I agree.
Right? So how do you...
Okay. So here, free market. You do not have a free market. Oh, I have been demonstrating that in my search for partners and funding for my Global Expats project. I can go and look at the business plan and stuff. Basically the big money-making portion of the project is to help families who are moving from one city to another or one country to another. That's what I did. These Expat Wives Club. Basically, it's taking that model and turning it around into a business model. But it does the same objectives. You have expat wives helping expat wives, encouraging, but instead of encouraging them to sit around in country clubs, get involved in the local communities, get involved in the PTA. I mean, I wasn't on the PTA of my kids' school and because I was the president or on the board of the French Expat Wives Club. My kids were in the French school. I was the only American. I was like, I'm not going to do that to my children. God, if I'm at the, they'll really, so there was already enough contentious stuff about me. I didn't want to do that to my poor children in their school. But I did have my input. I knew the one of the principals of the primary school quite well. So anyway, I was watching what was going on. That was another thing. I was like, yeah, see, we get into, for example, the whole thing about the chador and not kicking girls out of school because they're wearing a chador in France. I'm against that. So there was some issues I didn't want to bring to the table with my kids at their school. But I loved it when Magalon Orleans, one of the women at the embassy, she was like, "Oh, do you want your kids to religious class. I was like, oh yeah, what religions are they going to study? And somebody laughed at me and they said, Quenby, she's talking about catechism. I was like, oh, no, I'm sorry. Indoctrination, my children are not being indoctrinated. And I was like, what? They're using the French school. This is run by the French government. They're using the French school to give catechism classes. Yeah, you guys are giving me a big problems about the chador. Oh God, yeah, let's stay away from this one because that's really going to get hot.
How do you find that equilibrium in America where, okay, both of these things have to exist. Okay, there's powerful people in both. There will always be some aspect of that, but at least like the people, the 99% of us are represented.
Right. Well, I mean, you're asking a very tough question.
I know.
And it's really hard to answer because I always thought, I don't know what exactly like your thoughts are when it gets to corporate or government, right? I actually thought, I think Americans have been brainwashed into thinking that corporate should have more power. I actually thought that no, I think it should be government. And I'll tell you why I think that. Yeah. Because government.
Sorry, I didn't finish that whole thing. But anyway, I've been looking for funding and gone across, I can speak for hours on the problems with the capital ventures and all of the different funding and trying to get a business and partners and all. We're not working with a free trade system. Okay, it's nepotism networks, and the affirmative action DEI was just, oh, let's change the names and the colors of the people who are in the game. But it's the same protectionism racket. That's why it's not working.
Government, I can vote in, vote out. And I can impeach. I cannot vote in or vote out a CEO or a shareholder, or I cannot impeach them. What I cannot even do is convince people not to buy a certain.
Yes, actually, they can vote in and out. A CEO, the shareholders actually have lots and lots of power. Now, the problem is most of your shareholders these days, it's, most people who own stock are trading it. They didn't buy it to get a seat at the table of management at the company.
Brand, they will still go for it when there's like, you know what I mean? Like there's need for it. And you saw what happened with what was that company that was in hot waters recently for like child trafficking?
Cracker Barrel? Oh,
like
no. Sorry, Cracker Barrel. That wasn't word. I thought that was.
Anyway, the point is I don't remember exactly which company it was, but they got in hot waters and their sales, were affected like a month or so. And that's it. Right.
For child trafficking?
Yeah, something like that. Like either child or sex trafficking. It does. Anyway, the point
is. So it was like a company? Can we pull up who that was?
Like I think, was it Wayfair?
That's what I was thinking. Was it Balenciaga?
Wayfair.
I think they were like shipping kids through.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
I don't know if that's true, but like I'm giving like example, right?
So it's not true.
Yeah,
all right.
It was bad PR for. Like,
I'll bet it was bad PR. I didn't hear about that.
So what happened is something like this goes out, right? And it still didn't really affect them. Do you understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And like Amazon, everyone knows that Amazon's employees are working like, slaves pretty much.
They wear diapers because they can't take a fucking bath.
There you go. Thank you. So that stopped Amazon sales? Like people got all of a sudden very, honorable and said, we're not going to buy from Amazon anymore. No. So you can't fight corporate world in any way. You can vote them out. You can vote them in. You cannot convince people not to buy from them. You can't do that. But what you can do is you can vote in a congressman. You can vote for your government.
Yeah, well, you can also go up against Jeff Bezos under labor rights violations, like I want to do. I'm like, oh, Jeff Bezos, he moved to Washington, D.C. Oh, that's good. D.C. jurisdiction. But I need some lawyers. Oh, Jeff Bezos, I can take care of him real quick.
Government in or out. Right? Like you can change these people. You can impeach a president because you have good guys that you voted for. Like there you have some power. But what power do you have in a corporate world?
I agree with the corporate world part.
You give me some lawyers. We got the law. I know nobody knows how to apply it, but we do have the law on our side.
Just becomes tough on the other end because the corporates pay the politicians that you vote in.
Yep.
Good point. Well, then you start freaking lobbying. Stop freaking lobbying. Like, you stop lobbying.
I would like that.
There. And
You
this,
shut down the think tanks. You shut down all of these nonprofits. I'm pissed as shit with Marjorie Taylor Greene. She did a whole congressional hearing on the problems with the nonprofits, and then she walks away and ignores my emails or my DMs or whatever.
I just never could wrap my head around, why is lobbying allowed and why is foreign lobbying allowed at all? Like, it's crazy to me. So stop doing that, and you have cleaner version of your government. And then the government can regulate the corporate world. You know, you can, what was it?
Totally agree with her.
I guess what we are trying to say here, if it's a hybrid of government power and corporate world, then it can work. But if one has more power than the other, it won't.
Yeah, you're talking about equilibrium.
Like, yeah. So, but how do you get to that equilibrium? You certainly don't get to it by brainwashing American people to take government's powers away, because that's what corporate world wants, right? Like, that's exactly what they want. Then they are unregulated. Now, after this crazy guy, Luigi Mangione, killed this guy, the CEO, right? Now they started this narrative, well, we should hide all the names of corporate CEOs and all that. Now you can't even get to them and know exactly who they are. Okay, like, how is that good? How is that good?
Yeah.
You're going to lose that battle.
The solution is close them up farther in their ivory tower and get some more police or military to protect them.
It's not. This is where, you know, I'm an optimist with things. I think we work through things. That doesn't mean you don't have bad times, and you can't recognize that, though. And this is where I look at this certain fragility that we have in society now, where it scares me a little bit, because there is such a gap. And let's call it what it is. What underlies everything we're talking about is the American dream, and, to be more specific, economic opportunity. Now, both still exist.
Okay. The American dream, economic opportunity. No, it doesn't exist. I'm sorry. Not in this economic environment, and we're headed towards another financial crash. That's what they don't want anybody looking at. And it's going to be tough on a lot of people, but the thing is, an economy is not the GDP. It's not the stock market, the stock market dollar amount. Pam Bondi has now decided that the stock market is measured in dollars and not points. So anyway, but it's not the stock market, it's not the GDP. It's the people who work, who get up off their asses and work. The money issue, as I agree with Dr. Richard Warner. He's an economist, German. He was in Japan, and now he's in London. He says this is just an accounting problem. And I agree. It's just an accounting problem. In terms of funds for investments, it's just an accounting problem. And this is precisely what happened with the rise of communism in Russia and China. They overthrow everybody and give it in the hands of the government. No, that's not a good idea. My Lord, when I went to St. Petersburg and when I went to Cuba, I'm like, yeah, this is not working. And anybody, socialism, yeah, people, that's a road towards communism. You don't want to go down that, I can assure you. So the best form of an economic system is capitalism, free trade capitalism, but you got to get free trade in there. And the best form of government is democracy, but you need to have participation of the people. And this does not mean going to the polls and voting. That's the least of the bullshit. No, it means implicating yourself in the good governments of your communities, of your cities, of your towns, of your states, and eventually of your federal government in Washington. Well, nobody's doing that. I mean, I know the ruling elite, Arizona, Louisiana, Florida, New York, DC. The thing is with Foxcroft in Virginia, that's all the robber baron heiresses. That's constant. Well, see, that they used to be the New York families, but they're no longer there. So the robber barons, and this is precisely the robber barons usurp power from the founding fathers. And all of these robber baron people, all the money who came in, all the people who came in the 1800s and made tons of money, they came in after the American Revolution. None of them were involved. And the founding fathers family, well, look at my family and you'll see what happened to them. Yeah. Anyway, we'll go on.
In this country, but we can all read charts, and you look since the early 1980s, the chart is absolutely clear as day. You see it go like this,
exactly,
to where you have a smaller and smaller class that has more and more money, and the middle class of America, which is where the American dream of, like, you know, suburban life, family, white picket fence and a dog, and everyone dies happy and doesn't have to worry about their retirement. That's where that lives. That has
that American dream that he's talking about was a psyop operation of post-World War II. It was a psyop operation of the government and the oligarchs who were bringing in the Nazi scientists and all sorts of Nazi people, and they let in the Holocaust victims to ease their conscience.
Shrunk more and more and more. And there's a million factors that go into that. But I think what that does to society, of course, is it takes away hope, it generates anger, and it also then can feed on fear. And we are seeing all of those things come together right now to the point that, you know, I don't like the healthcare system at all. I think it's horrible. By the way, they pay off the whole government too. So I think it's despicable in a lot of ways. It's a group think problem. When you then suddenly have a part of society saying, therefore, a rando can rent a city bike, drive down 57th Street, and murk a guy at 6 a.m. in the street of New York because of the job position he has. I understand your anger at the industry. Don't disagree with that. The precedent of that and the fact that so many people are like, yeah, that's fine. That's a little scary to me.
That's very scary. Like, it's
very scary that people, you know, they're so pissed off that they'll be like, well, yeah, he deserved it. It's scary. It is very scary. But what we have to stop is these guys getting away with so much illegal and amoral activity that vigilantes take the law into their own hands. That's what's happening. Hollywood loved the vigilantes for their movies.
And the problem is in people themselves. Yeah. But these people have been brainwashed by who?
The corporations?
Yeah, and the CIA. Why do we call this military industrial, I would add intelligence complex? Yeah. Like from the days of TV and radio, that's what they've been preached. Like they've been brainwashed. So you can't expect, and above that, they are too busy. So that's go.
She's totally right. That's explained. The Rise to the Fourth Reich by Jim Marrs. Jane Mayer gets into a bit, but Dark Money, that's the Koch brothers, that goes back into the 60s. She's right.
Goes back to like, do we really have the economic opportunity as we think we do in this country? That's another question, right? Because like, compared to who? Because the most important thing we need to ask in life is compared to what and compared to who? Because you can say, I'm smarter than Elizabeth Lane. Okay, great. Good comparison. But if you say I'm smart, like compared to who? to Einstein or to me, to someone else. Like maybe you're dumb compared to Einstein, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like Americans think that they still got the best in this country of the world, but that's not true. That's no longer true.
No, the arrogance, entitlement, that's what she's talking about. That's explained in the narcissism epidemic. And it's bringing this country down. And Americans are hated abroad for it. I know, because I heard it all the time for 20 years. I mean, I'd be like, when I agreed, I'd be like, yeah, you're right. That's why I left the United States. But when I disagree, I mean, everybody does this, just
in what ways is that?
Like healthcare. I mean, I loved it when Tucker Carlson went on to Piers Morgan of oh, so the only thing you have good to say about your government is socialized medicine, and the only thing you have good to say about these immigrants that you love so much is they make good food. You might want to have some other criteria.
That's not true.
In many ways, there are countries that are much more developed than us. There are countries that are yeah.
Like, are you talking about like architecture and infrastructure?
In any way, excuse me, take the US and United Arab Empire and Dubai.
Right.
What are you talking about when you're infrastructure? Have you been outside in New York? You would get a heart attack. And New York's supposed to be the skyscrapers and all the, because certainly I don't have that in Utah. So yeah, more developed in what ways? So is your healthcare system in top 20? No.
Mm-mm.
Okay, then education, what about that? No. I can argue that even I travel a lot, okay? I travel all the time. So travel is needed to understand what's really going on in other countries as well. I could argue that there are countries that even with day-to-day lives are happier, more well taken care of, whether it gets to your income.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
Maternity, paternity leave or whatever. So then the question becomes, are we...
Okay, the maternity and paternity leave and stuff like that, that's goes down the socialism path. No.
Why are we still stating that we are the best? Is that an illusion of some sorts? Is that I want to be the best, so I'm going to talk about it and it's going to happen? Or what is that?
I think it's an overall average, because the things you say right there, like I said, we have a lot of problems right now. And I think if people rest on those laurels, that's why it's good for you to point that out. Our education system, our healthcare system, our infrastructure.
Well, it's not the only one.
These are all, absolutely. These are all true. When you take the average of everything, even if the world is kind of a piece of shit right now, overall, I think people could very well make the argument that America is still the best shit on top of the pile of shit. And obviously, that's a very pessimistic, cynical way of putting it. But you understand what I'm...
American. That's a very American. Yeah, no. I don't agree. And I'd be more than happy to argue. See, as an American, I'm yeah, let's talk about this. Somebody, a foreigner, like Elizabeth, I mean, she's at a disadvantage, of course. As much as she's traveled, I'm sure we've traveled. I probably traveled more than her because of my age.
What I'm saying right there, it's like a friend. I'll use an example of a friend of mine, Rajaratnam. Okay, he was an immigrant. He's from Sri Lanka. Came to this country.
Compared to Sri Lanka, yes, I would agree.
Well, yeah, but meaning he came here when he was young.
Yeah.
Highly educated, became one of the 5 greatest investors in the world. Long story short, was given the longest insider trading penalty in American history at the time in 2011 in what I believe now was a trial where the deck was completely stacked against him, which is not a popular take to have. This billionaire was actually innocent. I actually believe he was. And what's amazing is once you learn every single thing that the government did to him and what happened to him, he then ended up spending 7.5 years in prison before getting a home release.
Wow.
And
yeah, well, one of the Sri Lankans I want to see in court is Sharmini Curry, who is the head of the Institute for Capacity Development of the IMF.
You would think, the guy still got billions of dollars, right? You would think he would throw his middle fingers up to the sky and be like, fuck you, fuck the system, fuck all this stuff. And I'll never forget being in a meeting with him about 3 years ago, almost exactly, where he was talking about the justice system and things he wanted to improve in it, and putting his money where his mouth is, by the way, which I think is cool. But very unexpectedly, he was starting to get like a little emotional. And he goes, you know what? This is the best country in the world. I'm so lucky to live here. I was so lucky to come here. I'm so lucky for my family to be here. There are things happening in the country that make me sad that we as a people need to come together and fix. But there is a reason people don't go in droves to China or Russia all the time, or some of these other countries where they don't have some of the base freedoms that we do. And so if I can fix some of those problems to make sure we still have that 20 years from now, then I will put my money where my mouth is and do that. And that always...
Yeah, but I'm tired of these foreigners coming in here and undermining and seeking to topple those freedoms, like Sharmini Curry from Sri Lanka.
Stuck with me because this is a man who's traveled the entire world. He's been to every country. He used to own half the Sri Lankan stock exchange. He knows every continent like the back of his hand. He spent 2 months in Africa just for the fuck of it.
See somebody like that, I don't want to come here. No, I don't want them here.
And like when I hear someone like that having gone through the bullshit that he went
worst
through,
of what
say
America can overreact.
That's where I get the averages. And I go, okay, healthcare fucked, education, we got some serious issues there. But like when you look at it overall, we're still better, but we should not rest on that laurels and assume that will be the case 10 years from now. And
I don't know how old Julian Dorey is, but we are at a $40 trillion debt. Public debt. Everybody's fat, lazy, and stupid. Everybody's got college debt that they can't afford. The unemployment is just going to skyrocket. I mean, job creation, no. And I don't care if we're better or worse than anybody else. In terms of that, I don't give a shit. The only person we should be competing against on that front is ourselves. If he thinks we're the best, we used to be. I mean, when I moved abroad in the 1970s, everybody would, they would criticize all sorts of things about Americans, but they would concede that in customer service, nobody could touch us. And we were as efficient as the Germans. Country's a third world country. Matt Taibbi, he wrote about that. So did Ariana Huffington. Oh, Ariana Huffington, she's one of them that can leave.
To your point, I think a lot of Americans, a lot of us, I've probably been guilty of it too in the past, sit there a little complacent, like, oh, we'll be fine. You know, it'll all work out. And then you don't look at history and see that every quote unquote empire has fallen.
Exactly. I agree with that. So
most people invest in tech, fitness, even diets, yet they ignore the very match.
It's not going to just work itself out. We need some real leadership. I still believe, Bobby Kennedy. I think as she brings up, JFK and his brother RFK, that's why they were assassinated. They were of good faith. Unfinished business. Oh, all of the Kennedys, the Ethel and Jackie, and all of them have just been cashing in on the Kennedy name ever since. But I do believe Bobby's of good faith. Which, believe me, is worth its weight in gold. Because it's very, 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 very rare. We can get some good faith, maybe work. Move forward. He's not a perfect guy. No way. I'm like, you want somebody perfect? Yeah, I think maybe you better go to another planet. Elizabeth April. I'm like, Elizabeth April thinks it's the reptilian shape shifter. I'm like, that could be, but that's a little higher higher than my grade and being able to deal with. So let's just get to the ruling elite. I'll leave the alien shapeshifter reptilians to God.
Argue right now, hell no. But like I'm talking about like 10, 15 years ago, right? Like, again, I think the US gives you the opportunity to be that 1% if you wanted to. Well, not if you wanted to, but you have the capability. If you're a little bit sociopathic, if you're like, if you got all the right things, like a cocktail, then you can probably get there. Other countries cannot give you that. And I would argue the reason they can't give you that are partially our fault too in the US.
Well, how do you mean?
I mean, we overthrow and, the democratically elected leaders, we cause chaos in the world.
Oh my God.
We are the number.
The CIA, that's all they've been doing. Putting in puppet governments in every single place all over the world. The Ollie North bullshit, that was the first time. That we saw how they were, using black market money made from the sale of drugs to finance the construction of their military-industrial complex. And nobody said boo ever since, particularly Brendan Sullivan, who is Ollie North's lawyer. But he's gotten a letter from me.
One terrorist of the world, no doubt about that. And the reason these countries are authoritarian is because they have to be. Because otherwise, they're going to go in a coup or a baton or something like that, up there. I'm not going to talk about what happened to certain people, but like Gaddafi or others, right? And they know. And that's something that no one talks about. Like, I'll give you a quick example of country of Georgia. Country of Georgia is the most peaceful. And I can talk about it because I'm from, like I said, I was born in Georgia. I know what it's about. Look at its history and tell me if they ever tried to conquer anyone, really.
Ever try to conquer somebody?
Yeah, conquer somebody. Yeah. No, they're like, they've been conquered a gazillion times. They won the wars, they lost the wars. These people have been through everything, really. It's fascinating, how they are still alive, how they managed to, have the gene they had, this coding, right? Without mixing it with that. It's incredible. But here's what happened just recently. So we are using Ukraine as a proxy, right? We are fighting through Ukraine, this war with Russia, so that we can weaken Russia and the usual warmonger shit that I'm so over with, over and tired. Then we have the CIA working really hard to overthrow Georgian government who says, I'm not going to get into war. It's not my war. Leave me alone. They threatened the Premier Minister of Georgia. And this is EU and the US and Brits, right? Remember what happened to Fito? Fito got shot. Stay in line, bro, or you will be dead.
This is on record.
He came out and says they threatened to kill me. They told me, remember what happened to Fito? This is a country focused on Georgia. This government is focused on Georgia. They're we want to be great. We want to do all these good things, reforming education, all of that. What do you want, bro? Why do you want to cause a mess there? See, that's what we do. That's what we did in Latin America. Mm-hmm. I killed Jose Ruldos or something. We go in, we overthrow people. What happened to Mossadegh in Iran? Why kill a democratically elected leader that only wants to do good shit for his country? What's the deal?
Look at Plan Colombia, 1999. Why was I the only one questioning? Excuse me, as long as you get rid of drug production here, but we got drug consumption rising. It's just going to go elsewhere. Yeah, ask Ann Patterson about all that.
Well, define good shit for his country.
Well, he wanted to nationalize stuff that meant that it would be good for the country, like oil and other things. And we didn't
nationalize it.
Yeah,
that's
so here's what we do. Let me explain something.
Yeah, that would be fascist.
Yeah, so when CIA goes into the countries, they do something called they want to do privatization of the assets, right? And they usually put it in the hands of very few people in the country, and the people that they can control. They did the same thing with Saakashvili in Georgia, 2003 Rose Revolution. So they own everything, right? Well, how is that good for the country? When your biggest assets don't belong to people. How is that good for the country?
I see what you're saying. Yeah. But the opposite that's not necessarily good either. So let me say, hold two thoughts at the same time. Imagine that.
Yeah, but what you need to start doing is stop putting puppet governments in there and have free trade. globalization has failed because of this.
Right.
I think the current Iranian regime is fucking insane
Who brought them on?
and a disaster.
Who brought them on?
Hold on. I also think we shouldn't be in any way going out of our way to start a war
Agreed.
and overthrow their government, which is just playing right into the hands of the propaganda that wouldn't then be propaganda because it'd be exactly what it looks like. That would make people say, well, maybe this isn't so bad. If you really believe that something is wrong, and like the Iranian people don't like their government, I agree with them on that. They're going to have to overthrow it themselves or do it
Couldn't
themselves.
agree more. Couldn't agree more. That's exactly what I'm trying to say here. But we don't allow that, though. Here's the thing. We don't even overthrow, per se, the dictatorial governments. Somehow, the record is, sometimes we do, but if you look at the record of the overthrows that we know about, there are probably plenty we don't know about, but the ones that we know about, I mean, most of them are people who just said, I'm not going to be your puppet. I'm going to do something for my country. You might want to read a book called,
Economic.
Yes.
That's where you're going with that.
Yeah. So like, but it's true though. He's absolutely right. And how do you think that goes down in international politics? And here's what people don't understand. Everything you do in other countries backfires and comes back to you. Like international policies are very much like a boomerang to our domestic policies, right?
Yes.
I'll explain something. So foreign countries, how do you think they lobby us into action? Like, tell me your opinion, and then we can take it from there. Like, why do you think that other countries do have an effect on our Congress or Senate?
I would imagine, if I'm being very broad with my answer, where it's economically feasible for us to continue our, ability to wield power economically and therefore just in general around the world, then, we'll look at it, even if it's actually not going to help with that. We just convince ourselves it does.
So you're saying that like foreign countries lobby you to, like, help me understand, foreign countries lobby you to like keep the power overseas like that?
They lobby you in a way that makes you think, oh,
you have power over us and we'll do whatever you want. Is that what it is?
No. Because there's a lot of different countries that could be used as an example for this in different contexts. What I'm trying is, I want to be clear so that I'm not convoluting people out here. I'm saying that our bureaucracy is so high on its own supply that when another country, which is fucking every country around the world at some point asking for a favor,
couldn't agree more.
Minus, probably like China and Russia, but like when another country comes to us asking for a favor, we look at it like fresh meat, like, ooh, what can we get out of that? And how can we actually like advance our economic interests around the world, even if that's not how it's going to end up going down? That's what I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. So I can tell you one example. For example, just recently, again, like, I'm only using Georgia as an example because I know what's going on. It's like one of my forte, like, my topics. I can use Russia. I can use Israel if you want. But Israel and Palestine was never my thing as a journalist. So I usually stay away, even though I have pretty strong opinions about that too. But, recently, country of Georgia put up this, like news article, and then they had like a, I think, short segment in the Imedi TV, I think, where they were saying that opposition party, which is Saakashvili, which was a puppet for the CIA, Saakashvili's National Party. We can talk about that too. Like, that guy is incredibly interesting. Like, the guy who was involved in both Georgian Revolution, and then I would argue that he was a huge figure to what happened to Ukraine, like a big player in that too. Now he's in prison, by the way, for the crimes he did with the CIA or without them. I don't care. But anyway, so they put up an article how this party transfers money to a firm in the US that lobbies Joe Wilson, like, to do whatever they want. So put up, if you can, go to my Axe account, and there's an article about it. So, and then in return,
your X account is wild. I'll read through it. I need to get a shower afterwards. Oh, fuck.
Now,
so, like,
Joe
I can tell you, I put
Joe Wilson, if I'm not mistaken, Son Congress. Wasn't that the movie? Was that Charlie Wilson Wars or no? That wasn't maybe the same. No, I don't think so. No, I'm thinking of another.
put this article up. I was like, they are so going to come after me after this. I don't care. So go to articles or just go down, and it's called,
when did you post it?
It's way down. Go down.
Like September?
Yeah, I think so.
What was the article about?
I think it's called An Agent, or like, it was about Joe Wilson and taking the money from this firm. Hold on. It's going to be there. There, foreign agent. Yeah, open that. Okay. So in here, I explain. Yeah, in here, I explain how the whole thing went down, what was the firm that got the money, and then lobbied Joe Wilson to be like, pretty much like say lies like Georgian government stopped building Trump Tower in Batumi. What? Never happened. Like, and the guy supports the people protesting in the streets against government. So people who want to overthrow the government, he supports them in what they do, which is like they broke everything in the city. They went in and tried to like ambush, if I correctly recall, they tried to break into presidential residence. And this is Joe Wilson, the same dude who said to January 6 people, how dare you? Oh, really, Joey? Because if it's against you that American people are coming for, then you don't get to protest and you don't get to break in. But if it's Georgia, yeah, dude, like go overthrow the government. Yeah. Like this is where they fail American people. These double standards that yes, we fuel revolutions. Yeah. Yes, we overthrow other leaders. Like, and then it backfires on us. And that's the tragedy of this country. We just don't get it. And I think the only president that actually got it was President Kennedy. And this is why he said, no, like, it's just not going to happen this way anymore. Like, we're not going to be, giving power to Israel. We're not going to be like overthrowing people overseas. We're just not going to do this shit anymore. And they killed him. As simple as that.
I do think it's very well established on record that basically everyone, ironically, with the exception of, oh my God, what the fuck was his name? The guy who took over after Stalin?
Oh, Khrushchev?
Yeah, Khrushchev. Yeah. Pretty much everyone in the world, including in our own government, hated John F. Kennedy. And I do agree with you on many fronts that, John F. Kennedy was a normal human. He had his own flaws as a human. Right. But when it came to being a leader and an ideologue, right, he had a lot of amazing ideas that today it would be very hard to put him in a political box with that, which I really like about him. Like, he was there's no doubt about it that he was so like pro-American standards, ironically, a scion of like a family that probably got their wealth real, gotten gains and everything. But like he found a way to kind of break away into his own lane and talk about crazy things like denuclearizing the world, or maybe we shouldn't just overthrow governments because we can.
Right.
And like these are just insane ideas.
Absolutely. And he was against the.
But this is what I believe Bobby Kennedy is, of good faith and wants to do the unfinished job of his uncle and his father.
War, he was like, he talked, I think the first president, I don't know, we have to check, first and the only president who ever mentioned secret societies and how there is no place for secret societies in a free country and free world.
Yeah.
Like the only president.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I think Khrushchev called him the best president the U.S. ever had or something like that.
That's not helping his case. But I understand that.
Because Khrushchev was crazy.
He did, I'm saying like from a propaganda perspective, doesn't help his case. But, Khrushchev and him had that famous red line that they actually talked on. And they actually had some sort of, I wouldn't call it I wouldn't call it a friendship, but they had an understanding with each other where their relationship, even though their politics were obviously different, they didn't have a hatred for each other, which, that sometimes I wonder how much that contributed to us not blowing up the fucking world.
I agree. And we are there right now. And unfortunately, I don't know. Like, see, this is very interesting. Okay. So have you ever asked, why are you like so hostile with Russians? Like, why? Like, you can see it as an American and think, okay, what's up with that? Like, why can't we be friends with Russians? Because they are very similar to us, white Christians. They want freedom. They understand freedom. They are very intelligent. Like when it gets to, development, all of that. Like, I mean, they were the ones who went to space. We faked the moon landing and all that. We did.
You think we did?
Okay. I have to admit, Russians, I think maybe something to do with the cold weather. They are extremely, now intelligence is like your capacity. That's something that you're born with. But
what if I told
knowledgeable? Oh my goodness, that came home to me. I found this man it was for a visit at a museum, a cultural visit, and it was Russian icons. And I found this Russian, and he gave the lecture. I mean, it was fascinating. But I was like, oh gosh, these ladies, we have to go and pick up the kids from school pretty soon. So everybody had to leave, but he was fascinating. And I mean, knowledgeable. It was incredible. And his Spanish was really good. We were like, how did you learn Spanish? You know, your Spanish is really good. And he was like, and because he had been there for like a month or so, he was like, oh, well, I know the Bible in Russian. And so I just read the Bible in Spanish. And I learned that we're looking at it and going, oh my God. Then when we went to Cuba, we did go to a resort. And we went scuba diving. And there were some guys, the guys who the scuba diving, I mean, they had like engineering degrees and all sorts of degrees. We're like, why are you scuba diver instructors? They're like, well, there's no jobs. And but they spoke Russian because a lot of these Cubans had been sent to Russia for school. And he was like, oh my God, the Russians, they stink. They don't shower. Yeah, in Cuba, you're going to shower. And they even have salt water. But anyway, they were like, oh God, that was the worst for them. But they were like, yeah, they're very, very, very knowledgeable.
Told you a person who's very credible. Very credible. I can't name the person, but I can tell you behind the scenes. Told me that we faked the moon landing. Who was like involved in the process.
The anonymous sources thing.
I
can't go with that.
Yeah, you can't.
Like
unfortunately, I would agree with you.
Listen. I'm open-minded. Sometimes it does feel like we throw the baby out with the bathwater, and because we see some things as evil in our government, righteously so, we then have to say, you know what, all of it's a lie. There's not one thing we did. And for me, with the moon landing, my biggest argument against people saying we never did it. I'm not saying we definitely did, but every country in the world, including our closest allies, in many cases, would have had a reason to try to disprove that we did that, because it was such an achievement on the world stage that they would have been like, we want to do it first. And nobody did.
I would argue that they wouldn't give a fuck.
Why wouldn't they give a fuck?
Because
going to the moon?
Because here's the thing, like Soviets, when they went in space, like, yeah, that was great. Like that was really, really great. So, but why would achievement like that be a threat to them in any way, really? I mean, they can come back and say, so what? Good job. You landed on the moon. We went up in space the first dog, first human. Like,
it's a big deal walking on another object that is not the Earth.
It is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
But I just don't see how it's a threat to them. Like, I just don't see it. To me, it would be great. Like,
it's a great piece of propaganda. It's an amazing piece.
I mean, it's cool. But does that make the United States a better country? No. Does that make the people in the United States better? No.
Could be. I don't know. Like, not. I guess I can't see it.
All the money might have been, if they've been working with the Russians and the Chinese and stuff, money could have been saved, and more money could have been used to help the people.
I might be very subjective on that, because I wouldn't be able to, like, I would be, okay, another great achievement for humankind. Like, this is how I would look at it.
That's how I would look at it too, but you understand that's not how the masses that get fed look at it.
Yes, it could be. It's just, it's very hard to believe what they are showing as far as like moon landing go. And then you listen to people who have dissected the case and it's like, I don't know, but then I do trust the person that I talk to. So I don't know. Like, again, I don't know. But I think that this person is correct. So I don't know.
Well, that's the thing about that I always try to check myself with, because my brain, not just the moon landing, but with anything, my brain can go to, it's a lie about something immediately on pretty much everything. Because sometimes I wonder if COVID was, obviously there were aspects of it that were a social experiment, but if part of the social experiment was, let's break people. Let's break them one way or the other. Either they defend everything and say it's all real, or they say nothing's real at all. You go from fucking Rachel Maddow to Candace Owens and there's no in between. Right? And so conspiracies are very real. There are many that have been proven. We have one in modern history right now that is the clearest as day thing I've ever seen in my life in Epstein. I just had a guy here who tracked all the phones to the fucking island. I mean, it's real.
It's real.
But then we have other ones that people will claim and it's not real. And what it does is in my opinion, is it creates noise. So that if you believe these 10 things, one of them is 100% real and it's bad.
Yeah.
The people that are in charge of that thing can go, oh, you're going to listen to them? Look at the other 9 things they believe.
Right, exactly.
And I try to be so careful with that. And what I like about my show, like in doing this, is that I can have on given issues a perspective of you here, and then I can have my friend David Satter here, and you guys have some very different opinions. You both have something in common. You've both been on the ground over there and seen this stuff and understand what it is, and you just have wildly different perspectives. My job isn't to be like, David, you're 100% right, or Elizabeth, you're 100% right. My job is to push back on some things, let you talk on a lot of other stuff, and let everyone else out there kind of decide for themselves and land there. And I would hope that like the nuance gets infected where they go, you know, I don't agree with David on that. He made a terrible case. You know what, Elizabeth, her case on this was good. Her case on that was not good. Maybe, you know what I mean?
And that's exactly what every podcaster, journalist, talk show host should do. Like, let people decide if the case was made here.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's the right way to do it. And I agree with you on conspiracy theory stuff. Like, it's
My favorite is Gary Melton. His intro, we are about truth, and I mean, it is so psyop, it's not even funny. He keeps on repeating it and repeating it, and that's the last thing he's about. He's such a propaganda machine. It's too funny. So see, just because they say that they're about bringing the truth to people and letting people believe what they want in front of the facts, doesn't mean that they're doing it.
Crazy. I mean, the flat earth and this like stupid stuff. But I think that's exactly why it's there. I think you're right. You said something that I always say. Like, when I start investigating the case, I look at the case and I'm like, okay, what's noise and what's a real thing here, right? Like, that noise allows people to get like completely, I guess they become, you know.
She's right. What is noise that is trying to detract my attention away from what's really there? It's not stupid.
How do I say this? Not lost, kind of, but almost like delusional. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what certain forces, I would say, would want. Because if you're delusional, you're not, you know, cohesive. You can't make right decisions. You're absolutely all over the place. And, you know, there are still people who are on the opposite side of things too. Like, for example, there are people who believe that Kennedy was shot by Lee Harvey Oswald, right? To me, they are a special case. They should be, you know, they should be a study case somewhere. Like, it's crazy. But
hey, bullets are magic. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah. Somebody who still believes that would be an interesting case study. But why would you still believe that? And then apply it to the Charlie Kirk assassination. And somebody like Gary Melton, I almost feel sorry for Gary Melton. It's like the gift that keeps on giving and giving and giving. He just keeps on hanging himself.
Of course, yeah.
We've
proven that with everything. We've proven that with Kennedy. We've proven that with Charlie Kirk. We've proven that with everybody, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just that bothers me, like how much misinformation there is, like when it gets to the whole like Russia-Ukraine war and whole, you know, in the Soviet Union itself, though. Like, that's another really like tough case.
Well, let's unpack that. What
Soviet
specifically?
Union?
Yeah. What do you think is like the main calling cards of like, we're wrong about this?
Everything.
The whole thing. The whole thing. So they were fascist, not communist even?
No.
Okay.
I mean, obviously they were communists.
Someone was right.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I mean, yes, of course. Like, I'm talking about.
See, the thing is I'm like, if you really look at fascism and communism, it's not that different. And if you ever study political science, they'll always say, yeah, the right and the left, the extreme right and left come together.
They were communists. They were authoritarian. Okay. But I feel like most Americans see it as like communism is like one thing, right? I'm sure you see it too. If I said like, what was communism? Like, explain to me what was communism.
One of my favorites was my ex-husband. One of his grandfathers was communist in Spain. The other was an anarchist. And in their family in Spain, they'll say, yeah, the communist in capitalism, what's yours is yours and what's mine is mine. In communism, what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine. And the only difference between communism and capitalism is the assholes holding the purse strings. In communism, it's public sector, and in capitalism, Bernard Mandevillian capitalism, it's the private sector.
Communism in Soviet Union. Explain Soviet Union as an...
You do need a hybrid. See, like, and all the reports and recommendations and all from coming out of the IMF, World Bank, I've read through those. Oh, Lord, have I read through those. Much of what they're recommending, like private-public partnerships, it's not that it's intrinsically bad. It's the people who are implementing it.
American to me. We're like...
You want me to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we already established it was where the government took control of all privatized business.
What government? What government?
The people in charge of the communist government.
Who?
The revolutionaries.
Okay.
Who
they changed multiple times.
Right.
So how many leaders of communism party and in general the Soviet Union do you know? How many leaders? Let's count.
So it started with the original revolutionaries. You had Lenin, you had Trotsky.
Yes.
And then you went to Stalin. Stalin started the pogroms and the Holodomor, as Andy would say.
Okay, so
and then you had him till 53. Khrushchev comes in 53. After Khrushchev, who the fuck was in there?
So you know more than most, okay?
Yeah.
So, all right, let's unpack that.
And then Gorbachev, obviously.
Okay, great. So let's unpack that. Who was Trotsky? Where did he come from? Like, let me break the Soviet myth for you real quick.
The Soviet myth.
Yeah.
All right, break it.
Who was Trotsky? Where was he living before he became this amazing revolutionary who somehow took down the Tsar?
No, he ended up in Mexico.
Yes, he got shot. He got killed. So where was Trotsky? You want to know where he was?
He wasn't in Georgia, was he?
He was here in New York.
Oh, he's in New York.
Yes, he was here in New York. Isn't that shocking? You know what else?
Really.
You know what? Really? You know what else he was doing in New York? So Trotsky was in New York, and he was somehow able to have a chauffeur, like a private driver, refrigerator that was a luxury back in the day, and all this like very well off, like, style items for a person that wrote for a minuscule, weird newspaper once in a while that no one read. Like, doesn't that strike you all?
So you're saying he's a communist who lived in nice opulence. Never heard of that before.
Yeah, well, Trotsky...
was a kept man by the industrialist. This is New York instead of D.C. This is the industrialist. He was a kept man by the industrial robber barons, and in order to do their bidding.
Actually, it's well documented. Read the book Wall Street and Bolshevik Revolution by Anthony Sutton, and another one that did a really good documentation. His name escapes me now, but he's a Swiss historian. So they pretty much track...
All the proof is there. It's been documented by all sorts of academians. But unfortunately, the academians just want to give on podiums to promote their newest book.
Where these communists came from and overthrew Tsar. And it was bought, paid, and funded by the banks in the West. So isn't that funny?
Why would they do that?
Exactly. See, that's the question.
Yeah,
I have my theories, but I don't know.
What would be your theory? So let's start with that. Okay. So this is not based in fact. This is Elizabeth's theory.
Yeah. So let's start with facts first, and then we can move to the theory, right? Okay. So Bolshevik Revolution and the Wall Street is a great book to start reading, and then I will remember the Swiss historian's name too. So this tracks Trotsky's. I mean, it's a real fact that Trotsky was living in New York, and he was getting a salary, and he had a chauffeur and a driver, and he had a refrigerator and all of these items. And the question becomes where this guy had the money for all this stuff. Then he goes to conduct a revolution in Russia, and he goes through Canada. He gets caught in Nova Scotia. Again, a fact. Okay. We have documentations for it. He gets caught in Nova Scotia with a ton of money. And they're like, where are you going? And then all of a sudden, Canadian authorities get a go ahead so that he can pass, and they just let him go. So he ends up with Lenin. Who was Lenin and where was he living? Do you remember? Because he was not
in 1917.
Yeah, before.
Who gave the green light for him to go?
He became revolutionary before he ever entered Russia. Where was he? Because he was not living in Russia. He was in Switzerland, right? So, if I correct, he's a Sweden, Switzerland. So they sent Lenin and Trotsky the same time to Russia with ton of money. Why? who are these people? Why do they have so much money? Like they are nobodies when you look at their background, right? And then they start investing this money in communism and Bolshevism, right? So they gather like this like-minded people. This is where later on Stalin joins them. Like he's a nobody in the beginning. Yeah. And that's another thing. Like most people don't even know who Stalin was. And these historians in the West that come out and blabber a bunch of shit. And I'm like, what ground do you have?
What kind of shit do they blabber?
Like a lot of shit about Stalin that is not even remotely right.
Like what?
I mean, do you want me to give you a breakdown of so for example?
Yeah, give me a breakdown because there's like I have no doubt.
Where was Stalin from?
He's from Georgia.
Yes.
Let me start with this. I have no doubt that at no point in history when victors have emerged.
Right.
Will you ever see something where the story told is 100% correct? Doesn't exist. Like I study the American Revolution like the back of my hand. Yes. I'm very glad it happened. I'm very glad they did it. These guys were amazing. There's still 10% of things that sometimes do get written down, just not really talked about. That it's like, that was a little fucked up. But like that's war.
Exactly.
So with Stalin, I have no doubt that there could be pieces where they're like, oh, Stalin made it rain in fucking Africa one day. And like, he didn't actually do that.
Yeah.
But we are talking about a guy who is documented. I remember talking about this with the Vile Eye when I had him in here. He's got a great YouTube channel. He studies this inside out. We're talking about a guy who is documented to have murdered millions and millions of people. So I don't see any nuance with like, oh, well, was Stalin misunderstood? No, he was a midget who was just very upset about his height.
No.
How many kids been trafficked? And the cannibalism that's going on, I think it's kind of hypocritical for Americans to be pointing the finger at anybody right now.
Did you listen to what I said? What did I say?
You said that there's been a lot of lies and propaganda about him, so I'm getting
which is true.
Right.
So, and what else did I say? Do you know where Trotsky and Lenin lived? You said, I don't know where. I told you where. This is a fact. You can look it up. Why don't you look it up where he lived? Like, it is a fact. So this is where...
Yeah, I really like Julian Dorey, but right now, he's kind of being stupid and deviating the attention away from the point that she's trying to make, which she's right. She's right.
Like when you talk about noise comes in. Was Stalin a dictator? Did he kill people? Yeah, of course he did. But was he everything that West told you he was? Absolutely not.
In what ways?
Many ways. So let's start from here. Do you remember the time when Stalin was Uncle Joe? Really? He was not a murderous dictator then?
Yeah.
When we were helping him?
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So what changed?
The war ended.
I see. War ended, and then we wanted all these territories that Soviets got, and we wanted to overthrow and dismantle Russia, and all of a sudden he became a bad guy, right?
Right.
Right. So
to be fair though, that was all propaganda. They never liked him behind the scenes. FDR fucking hated him.
So of course they did because
they all thought he was a problem.
Because he was absolutely against the globalist elites, and that's the story that no one tells you. So you don't have good guy and bad guy here. You have bad guys. Okay, so
I understand that, Elizabeth, but this is where I got to push back on this. I'm not put aside like Western leaders being all good. They're not. We'll come back to that.
Right.
But like, if Jeffrey Dahmer were against the global elites, I'm not going to sit here and say, Jeffrey was misunderstood.
No, that's
like
not what I'm saying.
Like if you are murdering millions of people,
that's not what I'm saying.
You're a scumbag.
Yeah,
I don't know what to tell you.
So again, like millions of people, exactly how many million? Like millions of people. I first of all, the numbers are not there to support it. That's one. The second, you have to understand the guy to talk about him. Like, for example, if you want to talk about Jeffrey Dahmer, I personally can't talk about Jeffrey Dahmer. I know who he was, like in history, but I don't know. I don't understand the guy. I can't talk about him because I have not reviewed his case.
He was a bad guy.
Great. So was Stalin. No one argues that he was a bad guy. But the question is, when you have bad and the worst for humanity, like, what is your choice exactly? So let's talk about Stalin, shall we? What exactly do you know about Stalin? What exactly do you know?
I've already laid out some of it.
Okay, so where was he born? Georgia. Where?
I don't know in Georgia where.
Okay, how long he stayed there? What was his profession? Like, do you know anything about the guy? Like,
I don't remember. I've studied this in the past off the top of my head, like we're being quizzed in school. I don't remember what he did when he was growing up.
Exactly. So that's where I have problem. Like, no one really does. So I'm like, when I talk to people, they get so upset because they don't have the information. And I'm like,
all right, we'll give it.
Let's give it. So Stalin grew up. By the way, he was not Russian in any shape and form. He was not even Slav. He was Georgian.
He's Georgian.
Yeah. So he was born in Gori, and he wanted to be a priest. So he started he studied to become a priest in a seminary. So his mother was super religious, and she believed in like God, and she was like, crazy religious. She's still buried, by the way, in a pantheon, which is like only for holy people. So in Georgia, and this is the background that people do not know about Stalin. So he he's in Georgia till the first marriage, and he has a first kid in Georgia, and then the wife dies because she was ill, and after the pregnancy it kind of got worse and she ended up dying. And this is where Stalin decides, you know what, there must be no God, because he was completely and utterly
confused. If he's studying to be a priest, why does he get married and have a kid?
in love with this woman. And when this tragedy happens, he goes like, F this world. Like, there's nothing to it. Like, I gotta go and find something else for myself, because all these dreams and stuff that he had to become a priest, he wanted to become a priest. He was a poet, by the way. He has a whole book of poetry and all that shit written. And in that poetry, it's so funny. You read like the stuff like my little country that is not free or oppressed because of Russia or something like that. This is the guy who wrote this shit and then becomes the Russian, call it an emperor or dictator, whatever you want to call it, right? So all of this background is completely in trash. No one talks about it in the West. It's extremely important because it determines why he did things he did later on. Don't you think? Like everybody's my childhood determines why I'm sitting here, right?
I think it's very important. Very just important. Like Hitler getting kicked out of art school.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Fuck those people.
Exactly.
Should have let him in. We would have saved ourselves.
Exactly. So then something very interesting happens. Like, this is what like when we talk about communism, I always ask people, which communists? What era? It was all very different. And that's where they're like kind of something, there's like, they get so confused about it. What do you mean? Like communists? Okay, which ones? Because they were all different. Communism in Russia was all different according to who was in charge of them, right?
Because in our school systems, no place do we ever learn about any of this.
So Lenin and Trotsky, both of them were traitors. They were bought and paid by globalists. That's why Russians hate Trotsky. By the way, his last name was not Trotsky. He was Bronstein. He was a Jewish descent. He bought the last name Trotsky to assimilate with, the Slavic names and Poland and Russia and all that. In reality, he was Jewish. So was Lenin. So both of them come in. They have Western money to conduct the revolution. They killed the Tsar. Do you know which Tsar they killed? Nicholas II. Yes. So
Anastasia might have lived.
No. She didn't, unfortunately. Do you know how they did it? Like, it was so heartbreaking.
They killed him in a basement. They fucking mowed him down.
Yeah, it was so heartbreaking. And this is
and they were related to the British royal family.
Yes. See, like, it's very rare that someone knows that. Yeah, like, they were cousins. And they completely abandoned the king.
Abandoned him.
I think everybody knows that. Yeah, they abandoned him.
I think they were in on it, that's why. So there was no reason to decline him and not accept the Russian royal family in England for, safe house. Like, the reason they declined him is because Nicholas started saying shit like, we need we need disarmament. We need world peace. That's him. Like, he believed in Renaissance and all that stuff. And you have this ginormous country like Russia with all these resources. You have a leader that's pro-peace and pro.
That's interesting. Because, Tsar Nicholas and his family, they could have gone to England. And the king, they looked exactly alike. And they were very, very, very close. They were cousins, and they were very close. And it later came out, I forget, it was an aunt or uncle, something of the Tsar. And she found out that how he'd been betrayed, and she was really upset.
Prosperity and Renaissance and all that. And he's like, are you crazy? And they killed the guy and brought the Bolshevik Revolution. And how we know, again, that it was funded by the Western elites, because there was a Red Cross mission going on, which, again, you can pull up a Red Cross mission if you can find it. Sutton details this in his book. Who was in this Red Cross mission? Why did it happen?
Wait, can you explain the Red Cross mission?
Right, yeah. So they said they needed, people have to understand the Bolsheviks were not that powerful force in the beginning, okay? No one cared for them. Like, they tried, multiple times to conduct a revolution. They failed. They could not conduct a revolution. And turns out they needed more money. So then, Red Cross mission happens in Russia, and the Red Cross was like, when they suggested a mission, Red Cross was like, wait, we don't need a mission in Russia. Like, why are we doing this again? And if you look at who participated in that Red Cross mission, like, it's all either lawyers, like financiers, bankers, and what they were trying to do is use Red Cross mission to funnel shitloads of money for the Bolsheviks so they could finish the revolution. That's what it was about.
None of this part surprises me.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, they brought communism on Russia, and then they lost the control. Exact same scenario like we always do. So, when they lost the control, when Stalin came in power. So Lenin and Trotsky till today is considered as a traitor in Russia. Ask yourself why. Why is he a traitor? Why not why not Stalin? Why not others? Why is Trotsky a traitor? Because he worked for the globalists. That's why. He came from New York, killed their Tsar, gave a bunch of gold, by the way. What did communists do? Remember all this Russian gold that was shipped to Europe? Like, why? What, they didn't want money? It's stupid, right? So what happened is Lenin's last words are, anybody but Stalin. Why? See, that's where history goes like completely haywire, right? So anybody but Stalin. Why? Why?
Because he wasn't in on their scheme.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was a random dude from Georgia who had his own devils in the head, and he was not part of this one world order shit. And he looked at it, and I think I know exactly, I studied Stalin really well. And I had all the right documents for it because I'm from Georgia. I can read Russian, I can read Georgian, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, I think I know exactly when Stalin learned that this communism, he really believed in it, right? He himself. And you can actually determine the time period when he learns what this shit is about. And he realizes that, wait a second, Trotsky and Lenin, they are bought. They are literally these puppets of the globalists. And these might, whatever is going on, it might not be real. Mm. So this is where he actively starts to kind of take the power, right? And he's becoming more and more important figure. He does really good. He was a very good negotiator. So every time there was some hard stuff to negotiate, they would send him. This is how he advanced in the ranks. Who was he? Some Georgian from Gori? Are you kidding me? All of a sudden, he became a very important figure. And when he learned that this whole communism was not exactly what he thought, because again, this is why it's important to know a person's childhood. Entire poetry of his is about fairness, about my country being oppressed. So all of a sudden, communists, what do they say? Everyone's what? Equal, equal, even though that's not true, right?
Right.
But that was the message. So this young guy who lives because he was upset because his first wife died and leaves the kid with his very religious, by the way,
it's like the DEI policies. Everybody's equal. No. It doesn't stand for diversity, equity, inclusion. It stands for discrimination, elimination, and intimidation.
Mom to raise, his name was Jacob, actually, not Jacob, but Jacob. And he moves to Russia, and all of this stuff that he always dreamed of, all of a sudden is presented to him as communism. Communism can get you all this stuff, right? No royalty, no oppression, no nothing. And he ends up joining the Communist Party, but he ends up joining it because he believes in it. And then he learns that, hold on for a second, much bigger powers are at play here. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, and this is my personal opinion, there's no way to prove it, is that he was not okay with this one world thing that was going on, right? He was very patriotic, which he was. So I call Stalin's patriotism as a toxic patriotism, cause there is such a thing as toxic patriotism.
For sure.
Right? When you allow everything and everything is acceptable for your country to thrive. Not everything is acceptable, right? So when you kind of cross every red line to protect your country, that was Stalin. And he was patriotic at first to Georgia and then to Russia, right? As Soviet states, so a Soviet republic. So when he learned that, what did Stalin do exactly? When he came in power, what did he do? He started killing who? Imprisoning and then killing who? The same Bolsheviks that conducted the revolution. Why? Why? Ask yourself.
Because we in the West, to your point, look at communism as one thing.
Exactly.
Which is the equivalent of being in the East and looking at Trump and Obama as the same exact person. Makes no sense.
Thank you.
They're
That's
just a part of the same system. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I've had so many people come up to me off camera in the past 6 months. It's making me terrified. Just taking history and saying, oh, there's one thing wrong for it, therefore dump the whole thing out.
No.
That it's it is actually bothering me. And I thought that's where you were going with him.
Oh,
I will agree with you. So I apologize for jumping on.
No, you're good.
I will agree with you that the way that things are, what's the word I'm looking for? homogenized altogether is completely wrong. A lot of it is just propaganda, make it simple for people to digest. There are a lot of nuances here. So the way you just laid out that case is actually very fair in that it's not saying like, hey, these guys aren't evil and these guys aren't evil. No, they all suck, but like, here's how it happened.
Exactly.
I understand that.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that's what like is lost on history. And then what contributed to what you said, that every American's like head is filled with like communism is just one thing and so on, is the propaganda that followed of the globalist network against Stalin and all that, because now like two bad guys are fighting for the power, right? So he's a toxic patriot who's like in his head, well, what is this globalist shit going on here, right? Like, am I gonna get anything out of this? Like, is Russia gonna get anything? No. What Russia was supposed to do is got dismantled into parts, right? Like, how would you play Russia in this? Like one world order? Like where Russia fits? Nowhere. Because it's super complex geopolitically. It has Muslims, it has Christians, it has multiple diversities, like when it gets to genome and cultures and how they understand themselves. This is why Chechnya is a bomb in Russia, right? And we're not gonna go into it because that's a whole another episode. Like
Chechnya is a what?
Bomb.
Is a bomb?
Bomb. Ready to explode.
Oh, okay.
Like not anymore because Putin knew how to deal with it, but it was a bomb and it did explode, right? Like, when Chechen war, the whole thing happened because it's a Muslim country inside Russia with all these Christians and above that different cultures in it, right? So Putin dealt with it brilliantly. But again, it's still a threat, right? It's still very different from everything. It's almost like having, why, not to divert from subject real quick, but why are we so afraid of immigration? It's the same principle. Now you have Muslims in UK praying in entire
it's the exact same situation.
streets, and UK people are coming out and saying like, whoa, what just happened here? What is going on? Well, guess what? That is a constant reality for Russians when it gets to Chechens, right? And Russia figured out how to make friends between Christians and Muslims in a way that both Chechen soldiers right now and Russian soldiers are fighting for Russia. They are not fighting for, Christianity or Muslim or whatever. They are fighting for their land, which is Russia. And they are equally putting everything they've got into it, right? And they somehow figured this out, that these like differences are no longer quite that distinct anymore. That was again Putin. But before that, Chechnya was a huge problem, and so was many other different nationalities, including Georgia, by the way. We were part of Russia as well. So you're dealing with this complex Soviet Union entity. And how is it going to fit in your one world order? And Stalin could see that not only it's not going to fit, they're going to oust me, dismantle Russia, like what they did with Ukraine. By the way, Trotsky was the guy who was saying, you know what? Ukrainians have the right for self-determination. Like this was way before like anything, right? That's where this talk started. And then all of a sudden, like there was propaganda against Georgians too. Like, hey, you're this Asian country. Why are you okay with Russians, like being under Russians? You should have the ambitions to get out, right? What does that mean? You're dismantling Russia from the inside, right? Stalin could see that. And he was like, no, bro, this is not going to work because that's going to result in me getting ousted as well. And all of this that I'm building here. So this is, I think, where the whole thing went down, like when the Lenins and Stalins, like, clash started and Lenin didn't want Stalin to take over. He did it anyway. And then what did he do? Julian, do you remember? Like there's a word in Georgian and Russian history. We call it intelligentsia. He started killing who? The elites. Why?
Because he thought they were in on it.
Thank you. That was it. So yeah, the entire like history is told in such like ugly way when there's like actual facts that you can, look at and tell it in the right way. Now, next thing about Stalin is Stalin.
What I think she wants the point she wants to make there, and she's completely right. Stop looking at just, another atrocity. Look what happened to create that situation and that atrocity. And we keep on doing it. And then, look what they did. Well, why did they do that?
In second hand was Beria. That was actually Georgian too. That was Beria gets no limelight whatsoever, even though he was the true psychopath of the regime. Okay, Beria was a psychopath. Like he was. I think Stalin's motivation was toxic patriotism. He was right in many things that he did. He was wrong in many things, but Beria was a complete psychopath. So, and again, take the war. So World War II happens, and that's another weird thing that I could never understand. So who really won that war? You are educated enough to know this. Like I can see in our conversation that you know the facts.
Meaning
like,
who was most responsible for the war coming to an end? Russia threw the most bodies at it. There's no doubt about that. I think the way I've always looked at it is Russia threw the bodies, through the military, Britain through the intelligence, and the United States through the push coming into it. I think
so.
there was.
Would
there
it
was
be
also
fair? Would it be fair to say that the biggest sacrifice was made on the Russian part
by mathematical numbers for sure?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, like that's everything. Like what Russia did is throw the intelligence part, or like
no, but then also, Russia. I'm not sure how much they were invaded in comparison to Napoleon. Not positive, but I mean, certainly Europe got overrun, but the Americans, we were never occupied. We never had Germans coming onto American soil.
Like they just left out on that? No, they did.
No, they did. I'm saying who had the most weight of like pulling off crazy shit for each of those. Exactly. That's how I describe it. It doesn't mean all three didn't play a role. The United States threw a lot of bodies at the problem too.
Actually, not comparable. Let me explain something.
Not to Russia, but hold on. Let's not do this.
Okay.
Russia lost way more people. They lost fucking, I don't even remember the number at Stalingrad alone. It was significant.
I'll tell you what the numbers are.
It was civilians. It was the whole bit.
I'll tell you what the numbers are.
Do they say, therefore, the United States lost like 1 million people?
No, not million. It's actually very, very simple.
Whatever it was, let's pull it up.
I can tell you 27 million. I can tell you 27 million on Russian part, 200,000 on the US part. I can break this down for you, right?
What were the United States deaths in World War II? You might be right. But that's what I'm saying. When we start getting in the game of like discrediting all of it, 407,000, which I'll call that close enough.
Yes.
The same thing.
So exactly, like, 27 million, right?
But that's what I'm saying. Yes, Russia threw significantly more bodies at the problem, but like we still took losses too.
He's getting real digging down America the good there. So I'm gonna call him on that one, but. Yeah, I understand his point.
Just like I don't think it's acceptable to say like, oh, just
he's missing her point.
6 million Jews died in the Holocaust.
I agree.
How about the 3 million Poles? How about the fucking million Romanis?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
That's how I look at it.
Exactly. I also So again, but we remember how we started this podcast compared to what, right? So would it be fair if we were in the same deal right now and let's say I got everything and you got only 10% and then like, we're a very simple thing. Let's say we invented something and I came up with 70% of it and you came up with the rest and you came out and said, well, I'm the winner. Like how? I'm the inventor. No. I'm the inventor, you're the helper, right? So that's how it is. Now you have to, this is what like people don't understand. It does matter. It matters because when Russians woke up one day, there was no man walking in the street anymore. 27 million they've lost. And what's even worse is that when this war is going on, guess what the elites in the US are doing? Funding Hitler. Yes. And there's, again, this is a fact.
When the war was going on.
Yes, when the war was going on.
We know about before the war.
No.
But when the war was going on,
I'll tell you, do you want even shocking thing? When the US got into war, they continued funding Hitler.
How so?
Union Bank, if we had...
Joe will be back in a minute.
So, Union Bank. Look up Union Bank and Prescott Bush. They continued funding Hitler and the FBI had to... actually, the government issued... seized the assets of the bank under enemy of the...
Yes. I know about that.
Yeah. So now think about this for a second. So for the Russians at Soviet Union, who gave up 27 million men, and then there is this propaganda somehow equalizing the effort here, whether it's Brits, who, by the way, Churchill says, it's his words, I can quote exact quote, but he said something like, let the Russians do the groundwork. Let them do the war. Like, okay. So we did do the war, right? Like meaning Georgia, Russia, and all these people. My great grandfather died in that war. So like I said, it's not the same. I'm sorry, but it's not the same. If anyone really fought that war was Soviet Union and they lost everything for it. Yes, Britain helped. Yes, Allied forces helped. US elites, not the US people. By the way, US people were the most honorable in this war, not the elites. Elites funded Hitler up until the very end, until the the government had to seize their assets. Like, what is that exactly? What kind of, you know what I mean?
Real quick.
Yeah.
Yes, Prescott Bush was a scumbag.
Yes.
And yes, there are
somehow
people like him that
became
existed.
a president.
I think one of the things that was a big difference was that when the Americans came through, they were liberators. And there wasn't like raping and pillaging going on. Whereas in other places they've invaded, yes, and it's getting worse. And they're involved in the trafficking of women and children. They're involved in all sorts of shit.
Yes, somehow. And somehow the grandson became the president. Yes, Alan Dulles was a scumbag who spent the entire war in Bern, Switzerland. Very interesting address to have during the war. Yes, there are people like that were that case. But when we start saying and generalizing, it's the same sin as when people generalize all Russians or something, and throw it in with Putin.
Who's generalizing?
Hold on. Let me make this point.
Okay.
When you generalize that,
right,
and you therefore say the entire United States, you are insinuating, but hold on, when you say the elites, all of them, they were funding Hitler. They were funding Hitler the whole time. 99.99% of them in the United States were not. Prescott Bush should have been put on trial for treason, found guilty by a jury of his peers, and executed. I don't even believe in the death penalty, but I'd make an exception right there.
I agree.
That is one guy.
No,
she is right in all of this. This is a network. I've been exposing these networks for 2 decades almost.
There were a handful of other people.
Yes.
But to then make that insinuation that therefore the entire United States government, which is what that argument.
Okay. I'm not making the insinuation. I've provided all the names and the connections and stuff like that. A lot of it is posted on Ancestry.
It gets to. It's like a slippery slope.
Therefore,
they all supported it.
I
know that's not what you said, but you have to understand when you say the elites, you said something like the elites, they were all funding Hitler.
No.
That's not the case.
Okay, so Davidson, Bush, and all these people are the same elites that drive the government and drove.
Yeah, most of them. And that's why after we won the war, they had all of these German scientists coming to the United States. And the Holocaust survivors, that was just to ease their conscience.
Drove the government later. How do you think? You asked the great question. Like, okay, so his son and grandson became president. How exactly? If it's just one guy and all the other ones are so innocent, like they are stupid or something? Like, how exactly did Bush do that? Explain to me. Who was Atchison? Who was Alan Dulles? Who was Avril Harriman? Who was a magnet, by the way?
Avril Harriman. Pamela Harriman, honeypot Pamela Harriman, her first husband was Winston Churchill's, I think, grandson. Yeah.
The way, you know who else funded Hitler? Avril Harriman, because he was a partner with Bush. So explain to me, if it was just one guy, how did he get away with not going to prison and getting executed? Because I'll tell you something right now. If I was that one guy and I secretly funded Hitler by my country, I would, they would slit my throat, like rest of them. Why didn't they do that? How
he's a powerful guy in a powerful position.
Just one guy is the powerful guy and the rest of them are not?
No.
Yeah, exactly.
There is a handful of them that do that. And then they find their way into powerful positions and they're scum.
And then we have to argue how many then. And you can't.
It's more than that. For example, I mean, that's why I've gone through my English boarding school and my American boarding school. But Jenny Churchill, the great-great-granddaughter of Churchill, went to my school. Our paths crossed. She's a couple of years younger. But she's ignored me. None of these people want to be involved in any unpleasantness, just like their forefathers.
Argue exactly what number there is, Julian, because you don't know. And neither do I. But what I know is that an entity that gets away while my country is in the war, gets away with funding Hitler, is a very damn powerful force and is protected by very, very many people on top. Because otherwise it cannot do what it does and get away and then have a descendant, 2 of them, as the president of the United States.
The descendants is a major, major issue. And I completely agree with that.
Yes.
I think it is far more likely that when you have a victory like that with the Allied forces in this way, and something like Hitler was stopped, Japan was stopped too. You just go through years and years of everyone losing a lot of people, this insane war, everyone's on edge around the world, and now it's over.
Mm-hmm.
But these guys were stopped. what was the motor behind them? What brought them into power didn't stop. It continued.
What you don't want is nuance in any way.
Exactly.
You want to make sure that, and this is the point I'm really trying to make.
Right.
You want to make sure that 100% of the narrative is on your side, which is exactly what I was saying 15 minutes ago. When you look at any war, there is always, for the victors, if they were in the right overall, there is always that 10% where they did some bad shit. When you win, that gets covered up. I am not saying that's right, by the way. I think it's completely wrong that Prescott Bush was allowed to continue being Prescott Bush. I think it's wrong that his fucking sperm.
See, I don't believe that any of the wars were fought for noble causes. It was always about economics. Always.
But you just said the plot, right? So how are you overthrowing the head, like the president of the United States, without having a backup plan? So it's not just one guy. You just mentioned the plot. And Smedley Butler named a ton of them. And the names were like not released. Why? So who made that decision? You're talking about banking industry. Who else made that decision? So no, I'm sorry. It was not just the one guy, because one guy didn't approach a freaking general to say, why don't we overthrow Roosevelt tomorrow and make this a Nazi dictatorship? Okay. He's a mental case. He's going to end up in hospital if that's one guy. He's not a one guy. And that's what thinking that way got us here. Now we are under these guys. You know this better than I do because you've been in the US. You grew up in the US, way longer than I have. So now we are under this one guy, all this like shadowy government, and we can't do shit about it because the first time they did something like that, we said, oh, it's just the one guy. Don't pay attention to it. It was not a one guy. And that's my beef.
It is.
Hey, this is what makes me believe, no, this girl, she's on the up and up. I do believe she's on the up and up.
It is absolutely, in the context of the situation, a handful of people. Like I was saying, it's not just one guy.
It's actually multiple
families. But I'm saying when you generalize it to be like, therefore the entire government was supporting.
No, I said, hold up.
You said the elites. I'm sorry.
Yes,
when you say all the elites were supporting Hitler, they weren't. There were some that were.
Yeah, I didn't say all the elites. We can go back. But I said...
give the names of those who weren't. That's a shorter list than those who were. Why don't we start with that one?
I said the elites, which is true. Then the government, by the way, I never count government in the elite. So let's make that distinction, okay? So to me, government is absolutely, completely different.
I keep on going. There's the pie, a 3-portion pie. You got the commercial institutions, political institutions, and social institutions. Now, sometimes there'll be some crossovers of the people involved in that, but you keep that separate and you start to see patterns.
Player here. Really, you would think that Donald Trump is part of the elite? I would argue he's not. Like, who's really, like, you can't count the government into the elites. Government is manipulated by the elites. We would agree.
Yeah, Trump, he was a nouveau riche, bankruptcy building real estate guy, who, if it hadn't been for his, ivory towers and stuff building, and that New York was self-destructing, he would never have gotten in power.
Agree on that, but would you say that Donald Trump is part of the elites? No, right? That's why we voted for him. We got him in the office to clean the house.
Yeah, but no, he's part of the elites, and that was the whole thing. How do you people think that he's going to clean this up? He's been kissing the ass of those elites for his entire life, just like everybody else.
So that this would not happen. So let's make that differentiation. We can't just say elites. Okay, that's another thing that kills me. Elites. Okay, who? I can name my sources and I can tell you the investigations I've done. Davidson's, for example, that never get mentioned. Truby Davidson that literally single-handedly created the Navy Reserve that America didn't have. What the heck was Truby Davidson's job to do so? It was not. But he made his job because he needed a control over military. It's a whole rabbit hole that, we can go down to, but we can't just say, much to your point, just the elites. No. The government is a different entity. The bankers are different. And they are, by the way, some of them are not even American. Okay, let's start from here. So when I say that the elite forces, which is true, multiple, not just one, funded Hitler, again, true. They did. So then now put yourself for a second in Russian shoes. For a second. You lost 27 million men against this madman. And then you find out, which they know, by the way, that the US elites, which are bankers and the people who then drive the government and all this machine, funded this madman that killed 27 million of your people. Like, sit on that for a second, how that feels. And then
You'd be pissed.
You would be pissed.
I think that the same.
But
Elizabeth, I think the same things that have happened with propagandizing us to believe 100% truth and stuff that is not,
right,
is now being thrown completely in the opposite direction, carefully and deliberately, to turn us in on ourselves, to assume
I agree with that.
Now, I have a lot of problems with like the elite class, obviously.
Right.
I try to look at things on a case-by-case
Right.
basis. So when I hear generalizations on things that make huge claims that can, whether or not it's your intention or not, but that can be taken as like, therefore, like the elites just in
Right.
general, we're all supporting Hitler.
Again, I never said all
again,
were supporting Hitler.
but
Like
you-
we
but you
talked
said-
about this.
I understand that. But
Yeah.
you said like the line was the elites were supporting Hitler. Are we going to talk about that? Like that was the line.
Right.
And I don't like being a literalist. I don't like
Right,
picking
right,
apart
right.
words and whatever. But we're living in a world now where people are suddenly like saying things like, you know what, actually, Hitler wasn't the bad guy in World War II. It was really Churchill. It's like, dude. I'm not saying Winston Churchill was a
Right.
perfect guy. Far from it. We could
Yeah.
we could certainly go
Again,
down that.
we can agree.
But like we can't. It sometimes feels like we are in a vortex now, post-COVID, to believe the polar opposite on everything, and it really.
Why is that the polar opposite? I don't understand
What do you mean?
at
Why
all.
is
Like,
that? So one narrative is
Yeah.
that Hitler was the worst thing ever. He was the only worst thing ever, right there. Everyone had to kill everything.
Okay, I
in
don't know
sight.
where you get this narrative.
No,
That's not my narrative.
No,
Like,
hold on. I'm saying the general public
Right.
narrative right now.
Okay.
This is not your narrative.
Okay.
I'm saying this is
Yeah.
what the narrative has been in
All
public.
right.
The world had to stop him and all that, and anything that happened on the way there,
Right.
or once we had to get to that point,
Right.
or once we had to do it, was absolutely fine.
Right.
That was one narrative.
Right.
That's not 100% right.
I don't agree with that.
Right? He
Yeah.
was a very bad guy. That
Right.
part's right. But
Yes.
like there were a lot of other things that went into it, by
So-
the way, including, I just want to lay out
Right.
this
Yeah,
so that we
yeah.
can, people can understand where
Yeah.
I'm coming from. The other narrative that's now forming is literally the opposite of that.
Right.
And it's literally saying, you know, maybe he had a point. And it's like, dude, I don't know why we can't hold multiple thoughts at the same time. So I get really, and I'll admit it, and I'm sure people are going to let me know in the comments, and that's absolutely fine. That's why we do this show.
Right,
We
right,
cover
right.
all perspectives
Exactly.
here. But like, I get really, really concerned about the psyop that I think is happening in the other direction now. We've already seen a psyop in one direction,
Right.
but now it is the equal but opposite
So
reaction
what do you
happening in the
mean,
other direction,
other
where
direction?
nothing we've ever done is right. Nothing.
That's
There's
not
nothing
true.
in America
That
that's been
is
done.
not true.
I know that
That
you
is
don't
not
think that's
true.
true,
Yeah.
but I'm saying that's what a lot of people now think is
No.
true, and it
No.
concerns me deeply.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people think that at all, actually. I think.
You don't
no.
talk to people.
Really?
Oh,
I
you
do,
don't
though.
talk to
I have.
people then.
I do. Like,
If I told you some of the things people come and tell me off the street these days, I'm like,
like what? Tell me something. Like, because I think that's absolute nonsense.
what
that nothing is.
what I just told you is a really common one. I'll get.
Like-
Actually, like dead.
This is New York. You know, this is, I think, where Julian is kind of missing the point. New York is not the entire United States.
Seriously, people walk up to me. Winston Churchill was actually the bad guy in World War II. Hitler wasn't as bad as we've been.
Okay,
told. We really
that's
gotta
like
relive
flat
it.
Earth. Okay.
No, that's
Yeah,
what I think. But I'm
literally,
saying,
yeah.
like, this is now something I hear a lot, Elizabeth.
No. So again, like,
But I do. I hear it from
Again,
people.
I'm like, yeah, the Churchills, I looked at their family tree, and in fact, this gets into, in the very beginning, this goes back, the Churchills, this is Charles the First. So, yeah, I mean, Julian Dorey, you gotta take a deep dive into history. Because it seems you're missing a lot of points here.
From people that I would describe as normal.
again,
I've talked about it with
I believe that. I believe that they're again, like, conspiracies are wild, but again, there's a reason to be like there's a reason why people are so like everything is a conspiracy. Everything must be opposite because it's easy. Because it's easy when you don't have to break down the case. You can just do good guy, bad guy. Easy,
Yeah.
right?
Like
Good
they
guy, bad
did
guy.
with-
Well, I was wrong. Okay, well then somebody has to be a bad guy. Why don't we make the Churchill bad guy? Like, it's easy. It's easy to hold that thought. It's very complicated when say, actually, let me explain. The
And
United States.
Churchill was like put on a pedestal. You know, again, propaganda instead of reality.
States and its people were always the good guys, but they had this very, very rotten aspect of things, which is like banking and elite forces and all of these people that are manipulating many people in the United States. See, when you explain that, like now you don't have like black and white. You just have people who are doing their shit. Like, again, take Roosevelt. I don't blame Roosevelt on a lot of things, like in World War II. Like we just talked about what Atchison did without him knowing, what caused us the Pearl Harbor, right? So there are elements which we know.
Take a look at Eleanor.
Shadow government, which is today, like what happened with Charlie Kirk. If there's no shadow government, why do you not know what happened to Charlie? Really? There is, and there always was. So ignoring that is not going to help you. So unfortunately, they are in the US and Britain. Where would you be? Where would you be if you were a guy who's like money hungry and wanted to conquer the world? Like, which country would you choose to do it from? The United States of America. So that's what I'm trying to tell you since I got here. Like, it's not that US people are actually, there are some fault of ours as well, because we allow this in the US, right? Like, we don't know, we stay ignorant enough, or what you said, we go crazy on conspiracy theories and we cannot tell the difference and we cannot tell what's real, what's not. That's on us. Like, no one stopped you from doing research. No one stopped you from being smart about these things, right? So yeah, of course there is a responsibility, just like
Generations of oppressive parents did.
in Nazi Germany, Germans were responsible for allowing Hitler to what he did. What, like Hitler just, overrated like millions of people? No. They did what they did too. So let's be real in the US and take the responsibility we owe to the world, which is we have the deep state that goes and operates without our presidents even knowing about it. When we start there, then everything is much clearer, and the roles of what's happening in this country are already defined, So that's what I'm saying. And by not recognizing them and just saying, oh, well, that's, just one or two people and then nothing, we should not pay attention.
If I misstate that, let me be very clear. I don't think we should not pay attention to that. I just don't want to generalize the whole thing, because that's how, that is the same way that narratives start, where they say like, you could insert blank here about Russia and the Russian people or whatever.
Right,
it's
exactly.
no different.
Exactly.
I see it both ways.
Which, again, like we agree on that. So that's what I'm trying to say. And the issue should be upfront and saying this is exactly what we need to think about. So why did I say, how would you feel as a Russian, right? Like, because they are not stupid. They know this shit, right? They know, they understand what's going on. And now despite that, by the way, despite all that, what happened? Gorbachev agreed to the terms. Russians came to the table. They tried to shake our hand. What did we do? We broke every agreement on the way. Not every, but many agreements.
We did break agreements.
Yeah. Why? And not just any agreement, dude. Something that would cause like catastrophic results. Why? Question is why? Did we need Ukraine? No, we didn't. CIA director himself said strategically it's not important to us. Really? Then why are you meddling there? Why do we have a recording? Huh?
That's a lie. That's not what he thinks at all.
Yeah, he did. There was a memo.
No. I'm saying he said that, but I'm saying that's a lie. Like, that's not what he actually thinks.
No, of course. Like, well, I don't know why he said it. I honestly think that he understands that strategically it's not important for him. This is before war. You have to keep in mind, like, this is where he was an ambassador,
but
right?
That's what I'm saying. It's always been important to them. Look at where it is. Like, why would the U.S., if you're looking at it from the worst case scenario too, why would they not want, and I don't agree with this, but why would they not want that as a proxy country effectively? Look at where it's located. It's on the sea.
So see, that's the problem. That's the thing. Why would they want it? Like, it's not in our best interest for American people. For the elites, yeah. So you're thinking like...
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So I agree with that. Yeah, of course, because their objective is war and conflict and stability. Yeah. But put their objective... I don't give a fuck about them. Let's just forget them for a second. American people, who we give a fuck about and what this country should be. How is it in our best interest what happens in Ukraine? And if we have forces there or not? Let me tell you, it's not in our interest. Our interest is to make friends with Russia. Imagine for a second that we are on good terms with Russia. You know how many things that can help us with? You have Russia in your orbit means that you can, because Russia is not a superpower like you, right? So you're the big dog. You can influence Russia. And through Russia, you can influence the entire hemisphere on the other side. Why not have Russia as a friend?
When you put it like that, it's
very
like
simple.
Put aside personal. Look pre-war. Let's actually start there.
Pre-war.
Let's look pre-war before there was actually, all kinds of bodies dropping on both sides and all that, and funding going on and all that. You don't have to like Putin. I fully understand that. I've covered that many times before. But like, if you're looking at it strictly strategically and saying, well, we're not going to control who's in charge of their country, but we can let's talk about it like a parasite. You can fucking use them for
exactly.
your own
Why not?
needs and
Right.
allow them to exist in their way. I see where people would make that argument.
Yeah. So you're saying let's use them for our good, right? How are you using them for our own good? How are you doing that right now with wars? You're not.
You're not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah.
So why don't we make friends with them? We know they can't challenge us in any shape and form.
It's
Why?
just the old kid on the
Right.
schoolyard thing.
Yeah,
You're so
bully.
dug in. You're so dug in already that you're like, you can't say now, you know what, fuck it.
Actually, you can. Because,
you could, but like psychologically, the human condition doesn't let you do that.
I don't know if I agree with that, to be honest. Like, I don't know, because here's the thing. It happened before a million times. We did this with freaking Noriega. We did this with everybody. Why can't we do it with Russians? Because it's not in best interest of the, again, elite forces and people who control this country to have peace. Because if you're friends with Russia,
That's
you have
fair.
what? You have peace.
Yeah.
And that's unacceptable. It comes down to that only, period.
I think you have a point there. I think that
agree.
when you look at, blatantly announcing like, oh, BlackRock's going to rebuild Ukraine after this
Thank
war
you.
is over. When
Right.
you look at the fact that there were multiple opportunities to go to the table and negotiate here. And,
Right.
I agree with you.
Right.
Zelensky's been outed as just kind of a moron.
Yeah.
Like the best part is when he's coming and telling us what to do. And it's like, buddy, we're paying you.
Right.
You know what
exactly.
I mean? Like I'm
Yeah.
all for a country
Right.
being able to make their own decisions and stuff
Exactly.
like that. But when I'm funding your entire thing, which I don't agree with,
And you
but we've
come
done it.
shit on me.
That's what
and,
I'm saying.
You kidding?
We are making the call
Exactly,
at that
yeah.
table because we have personally,
Yeah.
I don't agree with any of it. But I'm
Right.
saying once you're in that situation, don't sit here and tell me I don't have a vote. I'm the chair of the board.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Yes, I'll agree with that.
But they allowed Zelensky. Who allowed that behavior, Julian? They allowed Zelensky. They played this puppet so well. They allowed him to think that he's actually Winston Churchill. And when you do that, like, it's true, right? And when you
No, it is
do
true.
that and you allow that person to actually think that, he's going to start behaving like Winston Churchill. And then you get what you got, right?
Yeah.
And then Trump came in and slapped him in the face and said, boy, you really need to quit thinking like you're Winston Churchill, because let me put perspectives in place right now. You're a nobody. And he was so humiliated. Remember the meeting when Trump and J.D. Vance just rained down on him?
Oh yeah, no, that was prime
So
time
sad.
TV. Yeah.
Just crazy. But he kind of woke him up. And all of a sudden, did you see the change in behavior all of a sudden? Now he's like, everybody's about, oh, Trump. And these are the same guys who avoided Trump before he got into the office, like Mark Rutte. Like Mark Rutte, who hated Trump with everything he had. And all of a sudden, Trump is the daddy now, the big daddy, right? Like it's pathetic. It's so, like, you want to throw up when you look at these people, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave it there for now. But, yeah, she makes a lot of good points. I just don't know, like, where she's been and why she's all of a sudden all over the place in these interviews. So that I'm not positive.